Hello, listeners, and welcome to very rare territory for our club this season. We have won multiple games in a row, and the man I'm about to introduce will tell us exactly how many that is because he's more of a statistician than me. I'm just a bloke who says stuff. So, joining me tonight after we've just had a bit of a listen to Gene Hackman doing a Chris Fagan impersonation is the man you all love to hear, Al McGovern. Welcome, Al.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Ash, how are we?
Yeah, pretty goddamn good. And I don't wish God to be damned, but because that would be sacrilegious.
Of course.
But yeah, so has your week and your weekend been going? You had a pretty good day today, by the sounds of things.
Yeah, good. My one of my nephews had a birthday party today, so just had to go up the coast to spend some time with him and the extended family. So bit of a drive today, back and forth, but no, a pretty good weekend overall. Ready to get back into work tomorrow, so that should be good.
When you say up the coast, like
Mm.
because obviously I live on in a coastal town, and for me, when I say down the coast, it's about like I don't know, 15 k's down the road. How far is down the coast for you, or up
Well,
the coast?
so
Up the coast,
so
should I say?
from where I am, if I say down the coast, I'm talking about Gold Coast. If I
Yeah.
say up the coast, I'm talking about Sunshine Coast.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got a ton of family up around the Caloundra kind of area, Sunshine Coast.
Oh, yeah.
So about hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on traffic.
Yeah, that's pretty good for Queensland traffic, from what I'm hearing from a few people.
Yeah, well, there's been roadworks that have been going on the Bruce Highway for about 150 years, it feels like. But most of them seem to be wrapping up, actually finishing up. So there hasn't really been a huge amount of traffic, unless there's like an accident or something like that. It's actually usually pretty good these days. So it's yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah, good friend of the show. Geez, I lost my voice there.
Mm.
Good friend of the show, Alicia, was telling me she drove 125 k's on Saturday morning, somewhere north of Brisbane,
Mm.
and took her 4.5 hours.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Um,
Another friend of the show, Jules, is a Sunny Coast resident as well.
yes, and she does make with her family in tow a very large journey to the Gabba for home
Yes.
games when she goes. So
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. If it's a 7 o'clock or a 7:30 game or something like that, they'd be home after midnight.
yeah, well, one of my good mates down here in Victoria, Tommy. A lot of people will know him as Tommy the Jumper Collector. Um, he lives in a place. Well, actually, he's moved. He used to live in a place called Euroa, which is about probably 3 hours north of the MCG on a good day, and he's moved a little bit further north of there to a bigger house because he's got a big family. And yeah, he'll drive down after work to get to a game, like MCG or Marvel, obviously, and then drive back home and go to work the next morning. I don't know how he does it, but
Yeah.
I'm only like I'm probably about 100 k's from the MCG, and I struggle some nights going up there and back. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's gonna say it's not that far for you, but when it's after a late game, it's yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah, well, we stayed up after the last game on the Friday night, mainly because the club had the fan fest on the next day. But
Ah, yeah.
yeah, a couple of times I've taken an annual leave on the following day if it's been a Thursday night game or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, because and as well, especially Marvel, because we catch public transport to go to Marvel. It's just more convenient for parking, and it's right next to the train station. It's actually sort of forms part of the train station somewhat. So
Mm.
yeah, so yeah, we just listened to Chris Fagan at the top of the show there before the theme music, having a chat about the Port fans booing Ken
Oh,
Hinkley.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, bit of a rough
Not fun.
situation. Yeah,
Yeah, look, I don't know. It's a tough one because obviously, he doesn't deserve that kind of treatment. And I don't condone, fans taking it out on, their frustrations out on individuals. I can understand being frustrated with the club. I can understand being frustrated by the result. I can even understand being, uh, how frustrated they feel, they feel like they're in a bit of purgatory at the moment where they're not really going up or down the ladder. They're kind of just in no man's land. But to boo the head coach, that's pretty poor form. I don't agree with that at all. And clearly Chris Fagan doesn't either.
Yeah. And the thing with Ken Hinkley, I mean, Ken Hinkley, Fitzroy champion. He played about 8 games and 8 of the best games he played in his career, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, he went to Port Adelaide when they were an absolute basket case. And ironically, he took over from another Fitzroy player, Matty Primus. And that club was in like, they were in massive debt. They weren't winning games. They were putting tarps over the seats in the stands, and like they were a shambles. And he took over. They made finals. I'm pretty sure the first year, or it might have been the second year he was there, they played that fast attacking style that changed the game briefly. And I reckon in the period of time he's been the head coach, I reckon they've only missed finals maybe twice, 3 times at the most.
And that's the thing. Like Fagan kind of touched on their win-loss record.
Yeah.
They've been pretty successful overall. Like obviously they haven't won a flag in that time, and their finals record hasn't been great. Like when they actually, when they're in finals, but their win-loss in the main, home and away season has been pretty good. One of the best of most teams.
Yeah, and I reckon probably at least 50% of the time they've made finals under Hinkley, they've got to a prelim.
Yeah.
They've bombed a couple of times, but I mean, 2021, it's only 3 years ago, 3 final series ago, they made a prelim and they just ran into a team that was red hot at the time and missed out on the grand final. But yeah, look, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Port Adelaide lover, obviously, but
no,
having been a footy coach myself for a number of years, I mean, I copped a bit of shit, but nothing like what these guys cop. I think the worst I copped was a couple of parents of teenagers coming up and telling me I'm playing their kid out of position or whatever.
Little Johnny shouldn't be on the bench. Little Johnny's the special kid. They should get everything that they want.
Yeah, or Big Bobby, who's 6'4" at the age of 10, shouldn't be playing in Iraq. He should be, a ruck rover or a rover or something. Because they get more of the ball. But I mean, and we've seen it. Like, Justin Lepich in his final year at our club, just constantly under media scrutiny, getting booed by fans, not as much as Hinkley is and whatever. I mean, I have aired my opinions on where the club was at that time and made it quite clear that I did not watch a lot of football when I was at the games. I spent a lot of time on my phone. And that hurts me to say that and hurts me to have done that. But I've got this little grab. I'm hoping it's going to come through to you because it is from the Channel 7 News in Adelaide, Tom Johnson reporting. So I'm just going to see if this comes through to you.
All right.
See if the volume works.
Now, this has been the scene on the footbridge since three-quarter time. Fans have had enough. They're getting walloped by Brisbane, and the calls to sack the coach are becoming deafening. Now, they've got plenty of fan reaction. They're not happy. And it's on tonight, 7 News at 6.
Did that come through?
Yeah, crystal clear.
Yeah, so like they've got the reporter, Tom Johnson, did I say his name was? He's walking down this footbridge causeway thing next to the Adelaide Oval at three-quarter time, and it's just chock-a-block packed with Port Adelaide fans. And I mean, I don't think you're going to ever get something like that on the Channel 7 News in Brisbane, are you?
No, but look, it's interesting that it's happening now. I mean, it's obviously, it's just after the middle of the season, the bye. That was the last of the bye rounds, but the bye rounds have been going for feels like 5 rounds in a row. But for it to be happening now and, not them just completely bombing and having a wooden spoon year, and like they were playing finals last year and multiple years in a row, like you said, like they're not doing badly. They're just, like they could be doing so much worse. The fact that the fans are acting like this now is so strange because, our fans have acted like that, but when we were, cellar dwellers for a decade and we were just fed up. And I don't excuse how we were treating Lepic and all that sort of stuff, and I don't condone the things that people have said about Fagan over the last couple of years. I mean, I've had my frustrations with him, but I haven't been as brutal as some other people are being. But for it to be happening now with Port is just strange. I mean, it's What do you think about it? Because they have had pretty good success in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so
without getting ultimate success.
So having lived in Adelaide only briefly, not for very long, and living in the opposite side of the city from where Port Adelaide is located and barracking for a team that was probably one of their biggest rivals at the time, I got a good picture of what the Port Adelaide supporter base was like when it was just the Port Magpies in the SANFL. And, they won 30, probably close to 30 premierships in maybe a 40-year period, let's say 45-year period. They were so used to success, and they don't like not being successful. But what they have to realize is that football is cyclical.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a go at some point. It's not like the Premier League or whatever, the NFL, where you can just keep buying the best players every year and you can have big 12-year periods of winning everything imaginable.
Yeah.
The AFL is designed. We've got a draft. We've got a salary cap. We've supposedly got a fixture that levels everything out. There's a few opinions on that are varied. And it goes in cycles and it swings and roundabouts. Like every team that's lost a grand final in the last, let's just say, since 2016, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we'll say, so what year did Freo make it? 2013.
Yes.
So every club that's lost a grand final since that year has had a down patch. And that's because of the equalisation of the way the AFL does things. And, we went through it. We went from being in 4 grand finals in a row in 2004 to 2005. We were garbage.
Yeah.
And we still had all the same players.
Yeah, we only lost a couple, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think we lost, Blake Carousella, maybe?
Lynch.
And Lynch retired, yeah. But, Lynch was at the end of his career. So
Didn't Pike retire as well?
I reckon Pike might have played that year, maybe, and that was it.
Yeah.
But I remember
was a few guys that were right at the edge of their careers, but there was still a lot of young talent.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We had the same head coach, the same assistant. We only had the one assistant back then. And we went through it. And Freo, they made a grand final. They had a big down period for a long time. The Giants, after Richmond beat them, had that period. The Eagles are going through it now. Collingwood had a couple of down years after 2018. Well, the Eagles won it and went down, but they went down after 2015 for a couple of years when Hawthorn beat them. The Swans had that down period. And I know Port haven't made a grand final, but like I said, they've made a lot of prelims. And getting yourself up to that, to that sort of point every season after season after season.
Yeah.
And not achieving that goal. I mean, look at us at the start of this year. You get to what's the word I'm looking for? You get to the peak of your season and you fail at that last hurdle.
Yep.
It does knock you about a bit. And look, Port probably, and I spoke to Adam, who we had on the show last week.
Yeah.
We spoke about this at length yesterday, sort of after the game, just privately. And, the recruiting of Port hasn't always been great. I think they've sold the farm to get a lot of bit part players from other clubs, guys who probably weren't necessarily best 22 at other clubs.
Yeah.
As their fix. I mean, you go back to Jack Watts, Jackson Trengo, Tom Rockcliffe, Stevie Motlop.
I'd argue that their drafting's been very solid, but their trading has been pretty rubbish in the last 10 years.
100% agree with that. You look at the guys they've got in some really good talent. And I mean, look, this year, they've got in Sava Radikalia, who's pretty good. He was not too good against us.
No.
yesterday, which kind of went against my prediction, but in a happy way for me. Zerk Thatcher. Well, I didn't think Zerk Thatcher was ever going to be a gun key defender because he wasn't really that previously. So
Yeah.
they got him in to do a job to do that, but they also subbed him out early when our big
that was surprising.
when our big dogs were running riot, and
Yeah.
that was a big surprise. I mean, they got a Lear in, and I'm going to talk about him a bit later. Started off okay, but I don't know where he's at now.
Well, he was really good at the Swans, and then he hasn't been as great as he, as soon as he came over, really.
Yeah, but if you look at the drafting, I mean, Butters is a superstar, Rosie's a superstar, Horn Francis is going to be a superstar. Like even yesterday when he was down, I still saw him get these absolute beast type clearances, and
Georgiadis was a good pick.
Yeah, Georgiadis. I mean, he's a big lump of a lad, so they used to say in the olden days, and he can take a grab. He's a pretty good kick for goal.
Yeah.
And draft wise, I think they're on a pretty good trajectory, like we were early in Fagan's sort of era.
Yeah.
But trade wise, I think we're well ahead.
I guess Juan Francis technically was a trade, but he was so fresh into it that he was basically a draftee.
You know what? Yeah, like he was not going to be the number one draft pick if the rules were not weighted in the favour of kids whose dad played for a certain club.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. But I mean, you look at it even just from a calendar point of view. So he was drafted November, and then by next October he was gone. So he didn't even. He wasn't even at North Melbourne for a full calendar year.
Yeah, so
he basically was a draftee for Port.
Yeah, and that's it. That's why I lumped him in with the draftees, But like, and look, I was pretty clear on Thursday night that I thought Willie Rioli was a big danger to us. I was a bit down that he didn't end up playing because I like watching him play. I was also up and about because, well, as I said, he's a big danger to us. He's capable of changing games with a couple of really quick, miraculous goals.
Yeah.
No Travis Boak, no Charlie Dixon, although Dixon sort of dropped off a bit in recent years.
And Ollie Wines was there, but he's been almost absent since his Brownlow.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with him.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just probably, same thing with Tim Kelly at the Eagles and Hugh McCluggage last year with us, where these other guys come in and they become the big dogs and he's sort of been pushed out a little bit.
Yeah, well, he was the captain for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, at some point I think he was. I think he was a co-captain.
He was like their go-to guy for at least a few years there because he won his Brownlow. I'm pretty sure he was the captain for a season or two. And they have the whole, their captain wears number one jumper and all that sort of stuff. But he was their guy for a couple of years, and then he just kind of, he's still there, but he was basically absent from the game. I don't remember him doing anything during the game.
No, he did a lot of finger pointing and arguing with umpires. I noticed that. But look, this is not the Port Adelaide Power Fancast, although we're probably being a lot more positive about Port Adelaide than what their own fan podcasts, if they've got any, would be at the moment.
Yeah.
On to the club that we love.
Yeah.
We're smashing down the door of the top 8 at the moment.
Oh, mate. I mean, as you said before, we, how many have we won in a row? We've won 3 in a row, but if you count the bye, it's been 4 weeks in a row that we haven't lost.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. I was going to say we've won 3 in a row, then I thought, hang on, there's an extra week in there.
Yeah.
You didn't lose.
That's exactly right.
I was like, you'll be right onto that. So I'll give you myself a pat on the back for I gave you some rope and you took it.
Yep. That's a beautiful connection there without even communicating about it.
It's like you're reading my mind, man. Yeah, and we had the second highest percentage in the comp as well, which you and I had a bit of a chat about percentage yesterday.
Yeah.
And we are going to get to that a little bit more. I've got a couple of big questions, and that does involve the later part of the game.
Yep.
So, yeah, look, I mean, we were briefly in the top 8, I don't know, for a game or two. Until
Melbourne
and then
the rest of the round had to finish.
Yeah, until Melbourne played, and obviously Freo. I mean, Freo were never going to lose at home against Gold Coast. Gold Coast just, as soon as they get on a bus or a plane or a train or even in a taxi, they just forget that they exist. They're no good.
Except for when they go to Northern Territory.
Well, that's their home ground, so
Yeah.
I don't really count that as an away game.
Hmm.
I mean, how good are they in Darwin though? Like,
Oh, it's unreal. Like they're a completely different team up there.
yeah, I'm glad we don't play them there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
even though we have got a Darwin connection at our football club,
True.
I don't think we're beating them there,
Yeah.
no matter where either team is on the ladder. So I did a ladder predictor, and these things are fraught with danger. You always like, you know. One year I did one at the start of the season, and I forgot to give St Kilda a win for the whole entire season.
Yep.
Like I kept thinking, yeah, they'll win this one coming up or whatever, and then I forgot. And I got roasted for it because they made the finals that year, and a few Saints fans really got up me. So, yeah, and I think I had Gold Coast in like sixth place when I did one last year. So that went well for me.
Yep.
So there's a little caveat on this because my ladder predictor went when I got through to the end of it. Now, I initially did one a week and a bit ago, and I had us losing to Port and I had us losing to Collingwood.
Mm.
And I thought the Sydney game could be a toss of the coin, give us the benefit of the doubt because we're the home team. And that had us in fifth. Now, all I changed was one less round because we'd already played Port. So I did it again yesterday. Had us losing to Collingwood again, went to 50-50 with Sydney and gave us the win, but it could go either way.
Yep.
And at the end of it had us in third place. And I was very generous to Collingwood and Carlton. I'm pretty sure I gave Collingwood and Carlton wins in every game except the one where they play each other. I think I went Collingwood's way.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I went
Collingwood always gets very lucky conveniently, don't they?
Oh, I went Carlton's way now that I think about it. So,
okay.
So this was what the top 10. I'll give it the top 10. This is what it looks like based on my ladder predictor. So Sydney in first, of course.
Yeah.
21 wins. Carlton 17 wins in second. So that gives Sydney what? 2 losses.
Yeah, they got a handy buffer there.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go 21-2. I think everyone thinks that they're going to probably drop another, 2 more games, maybe.
Well, they got beaten by Richmond, which I still just can't calculate in my head how that
happened. It's kind of like Pakistan in the cricket. They'll lose to the minnows, but then they'll beat like Australia and India and the West Indies and whatever. But so I had Carlton 17 wins, but pretty low on the percentage.
Yep.
Had us on 15 wins, so that means we've got to win another 8.
And looking at our run home, there's only really a couple of teams. It's ironic because, a couple of weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, whatever, I would have told you, geez, I don't know how many more we're going to win for the rest of the season. And now, based on our recent form, looking at the run home, there's only really a couple of teams I can see that would give us a challenge if we keep up the form that we've had for the last month or so.
Yeah, and look, I think we can beat Collingwood at the G, but I've conceded that one because I don't want to be over what's the word I'm looking for? Hysterical. And I'm going to try and be realistic and say, well, there's probably going to be a point where we drop a game in the run home.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, we dropped one to Gold Coast in the middle of that run home last year, and it's going to happen. No team wins every game. So I had Collingwood, Geelong, Fremantle in that order. Collingwood and Geelong in that order on 14 wins. And then it had Freo, Essendon, Western Bulldogs, and the Giants in 9th place, all on 13 wins. And without my glasses, Melbourne in 10th place on 12 wins. So, I mean, look, all of that is absolutely realistic, but Essendon also have a pretty soft run home. They've had a pretty soft draw all year, really. I mean, they've played North Melbourne and the Eagles more times than what a couple of other clubs. Like they've played them 3 times all up, and a couple of other clubs haven't played them at all yet.
Yeah.
So it's how do you pick that? But that has us in 3rd place playing Carlton probably at the MCG in the first week of the finals. Most likely the MCG, as I said. So. I guess this is one of those things where we'll put a pin in this and revisit it during the finals bye round.
Yeah, look, it's looking much more optimistic for the end of the year. It's looking like finals is really back on the table. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as to say, top 4 or even, a grand final. But my hopes for finals have re-emerged in the last month. That's for sure.
Yeah, if you revisit a little while back, probably about around 6 or 7, I think you had us just out of the finals and I had us in 7th and 8th. I was being overly optimistic at that stage because we'd only won 1 or 2 games. I think we'd only won 2 games.
I knew we wouldn't bottom out, but
Yeah.
I thought we were going to hang around the maybe 10 to 12 mark come the end of the season. That's where I thought we were going to sit at. And look, I'd probably have us around, maybe 6th or 7th now. I don't know if we were going to be top 4 potential. But then again, we're a couple of wins behind some of the better teams. But yeah, I don't know. I need to see a bit more.
Footy's really hard to pick this year, isn't it? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Every time you think a team is unbeatable, they go on a losing streak. Look at Geelong and the Giants, for example. And then you got clubs like us and the Western Bulldogs and Freo, I'll throw them into the mix where one week they look like world beaters and the next they get absolutely flogged. And we haven't really, other than the Giants, we haven't had any real floggings. But Melbourne. I mean, no one knows where Melbourne are at. I don't think even Melbourne know. They nearly lost to North last night. 3
points. I didn't watch the game, but I just looked at the score before, and that's pretty incredible. The fact that they got within 3 points of Melbourne and 1 point within Collingwood, are they playing better, do you think? Or do you think those teams maybe aren't as good as we thought they were going to be?
I think it's a little of column A and a little of column B.
Yeah.
I mean, Melbourne didn't score in the last quarter against the 17th or 18th, whatever they are, place team. We've got Melbourne this week, so hopefully that's a good omen for us that Melbourne don't score in the last quarter, because last time we played them, they did score in the last quarter.
Yes. Yeah, they kicked a couple of late goals to make it look like, because we were flogging them at one point, but then they caught up a little bit with some red time goals to make it look like it was a lot closer than it actually was.
Yeah, well, that's it. So, I guess do you have any thoughts on your top 8 where you see anyone else sort of sitting?
Well, as this round ends, we're sitting in 10th position.
Yep.
It's we've won 7 and lost 6 and drawn 1. So that's pretty much a 50-50 split if you count that draw as I don't know, do you count it as a loss or do you count it as a win? I'm not sure, but it felt like more of a win when we had it. It felt like more of a win than a loss because we'd had a few rough games in a row.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how many teams are all sitting on the same amount of wins.
Yep.
And then there's a few that are really good at the top, and then a few that are really poor at the bottom. So we're on 7 wins, and there's 4 teams that are in that, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 teams on 8 wins. So we're only 1 win outside of the top 4 technically, which is pretty crazy to think.
And 2 points out of the top 8, and and to think a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, after we lost to Hawthorn, nobody thought we're that close.
No.
But
the Swans are looking more intimidating, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
13 wins and 1 loss.
They were really good last night. I watched probably half of that game on the big screen at my gym while I was doing stuff. And, Goulden was just amazing. I've been a critic of Goulden at times, calling him a bit selfish and whatever, but him and Grundy, they played team games, but they were amazing. And I remember sending you a message asking if Isaac Heaney is the Chris Hemsworth of the AFL. I mean, the guy's incredibly good looking. He's incredibly good at everything he does. And he's just he seems to be a really likable guy as well. Geez, I wish he played for us.
Yeah.
It's funny. I actually watched this video today. Chris Hemsworth was getting asked these random questions on an interview, like they do like word association and things like that on interviews just for a bit of comedy. And his answers had me in stitches. But yeah, it's funny.
He's a very charismatic fellow, isn't he?
Yeah, and I reckon Isaac Heaney's the same sort of thing. And I tell you what, Steve Canole, Dom Ambrosio, if you're listening, which of course you are because you should be, give Isaac Heaney a call, and I'm sure you can come up with a deal.
Jeez, that's an expensive one. He's hot favourite for the Brownlow this year.
Yeah. Not that we encourage the advertising of gambling, but
no. I wasn't even talking about from a gambling point of view. I was talking about from a Brownlow predictor point of view.
Yeah,
he's predicted to have the most votes at this stage than any other player.
Yeah, I feel as though, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that we had Brownlow winners in years where we had lots and lots of really good players who were all Australians in the same year and whatever. Yeah. But I feel as though this year, so Goulden's going to take votes. He hasn't had the great season that he had last year, but he's going to take votes, the 3 voters. Warner's going to take 3 voters.
Yep.
Grundy, I reckon, has got probably 4 3 voters in him as well. And what a pickup he's been for the Swans as well. Like they got him for a packet of chips, and they're not even paying 3/4 of his salary. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. It could, you never know. Lockie Neal might be a bit of a smoky.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we did pretty poor in the first part of the year. He was one of our better players, I guess you could say.
Yeah, even in that loss to Collingwood, he would have been. I reckon he would have got votes in that game.
Only one person's getting votes in the Collingwood matches. Person who's currently sitting third as the favourite in the predictor, I should say.
Yeah.
Won't even mention his name, but so I said Heaney's the red hot favourite at the moment.
Yeah.
In the predictor, Patrick Cripps is the second favourite, which I find strange.
Well, Kane Corn said today that Patrick Cripps is the currently the best captain in the league, and I think I spat my whatever I was eating at the time across the room. Yeah, my soy mocha latte. It was tepid as well. None of this hot coffee stuff.
That's it.
No, I actually can't drink soy milk, so I have a get out of jail free card there. Have bodily issues with it. But no, come on. Surely there's Alex Pearce at the Dockers is having a career best season, and I think the Dockers rise and fall on his form down back.
Did he mean that that he thinks he's the best captain or the best captain best player captain, as in performance they're putting out on the field? Or did he mean their off-field captain, how good they are for the club, how good they are for their team, their captain presence, not necessarily their player output?
The quote just said, Patrick Cripps is the best captain currently playing in the AFL, and then it was attributed to Kane Corn. So, I don't watch a lot of Carlton because it's Carlton. To be honest, I don't watch a lot of other clubs playing full stop. I tell you what, speaking of boring football, how boring was it to watch? How boring was it to watch our game yesterday? Even though we were winning by a lot, God damn, it was boring. My daughter kept asking if she could walk out of the room. And I was like, no, you know the rules. Once you're in here and the game starts, you stay here till the next break, and then you've got to come back. And she's like, but it's boring. The commentators are boring. The crowd's quiet.
Yeah, it was an awkward one.
The commentators were just for 3/4 of the game talking amongst themselves about each other, or I like this guy, he's pretty good. But the play-by-play stuff, there wasn't much of that going on. And Dermy and Rashudo love hearing their own voices, don't they?
Oh yeah, they're basically having their own private conversations. At least it was slightly better than having BT and JB basically just being disappointed any time we kick a goal against a team that's not that is from Victoria or something like that. That's always my favorite. Like
Yeah.
they always start super pumped up and excited, and then if we get, 4 or 5 goals up, they just get. It sounds like they're disappointed that we're doing well, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've said this to a couple of people over the weekend. We kind of see and hear things that we're always biased in what we see and hear. I feel it's like a few people were messaging me, Brisbane supporters, saying, "Oh, geez, the Port players are getting really niggly and getting into our boys and whatever." And I had a mate at the game. He's a Port Adelaide absolute Port Adelaide hater. He hates them more than anything else in life.
Mm.
And he's not a Brisbane supporter, but he loves Brisbane because he's one of my good mates and loves them because of me. And he's one of the reasons why I sort of have a soft spot for the Crows as well.
Yeah.
And he was messaging me going, "Oh man, you should see some of the stuff that your boys are doing behind play. They're making sure there's no one looking, and then no umpires looking, and then they'll get in a little kidney punch or a bit of a corky or whatever." And I was like, "Yeah." All we're seeing on TV though is just the Port players doing stuff, but they're doing it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If they were doing it, they must have been very subtle about it, because I don't recall too many incidents that we actually saw on camera. But we saw tons of incidents with like Butters, Jason Horn-Francis, like just a bunch of guys, just basically just wailing on our guys. And the fact that Butters got a $10,000 fine instead of a suspension.
Oh, of course,
unbelievable.
Because Brownlow
fourth incident. Yeah, but he's not even one of the favourites. He's just
but
maybe up there.
Even Georgiades, I know we pumped him up a little bit before, but he constantly was getting Starcevic in headlocks and stuff like that. And I actually had that further down the page in my notes. But
he gave away 2 free kicks on Starcevic in like a minute, didn't he?
Yeah.
At one stage?
Yeah, he did. And that's going to come up in my stats actually. But yeah, and I was just looking, like my heart rate, I'm dead set. I am not lying. During the game, my heart rate peaked at 53 beats per minute.
Yeah, look, it became pretty clear at one point pretty early on, that we were going to win, but I was just watching to see if it was going to be one of those situations where if we stayed comfortably ahead or if they were going to fight back and we were kind of just going to get comfortable and give up a little bit. And then, instead of winning by 100 points, we were going to win by, 12 points because we just kind of gave up. But
because
credit to them.
Because they're Brisbane.
Yeah, exactly. Because what, history says that's typically what happens. But
yeah.
And I know we're going to touch on that a bit later, but yeah, I was a little disappointed with our fourth quarter effort.
Yeah, and it's funny because my daughter was almost barracking for Port to get a run on in the last quarter to liven the commentary
I was
up.
going to say, just to make it a bit more exciting, yeah.
She's like, "Oh, when we played the Crows, you couldn't hear the commentators because the crowd was so loud.
Yeah.
Booing everything we did and cheering everything they did. But the Port fans don't even do either of those things.
Yeah. You
can just kind of hear this little inane chatter in the background, and that's it. And I'm like, yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird one because it's like, we scored 152 points. Like we won by 79 points. But it felt like a game where we could have, if we didn't just roll over not even roll over, just put the queue in the rack for the whole fourth quarter, it felt like we probably could have won by 200.
Yeah. And I still think that the
kick 200, I should say, not won by 200.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, either or. But like, it still felt like even if we had kicked 200 and won by 170 or whatever, the commentators still would have been flat because there was just no life. There was no life in anything. Well, obviously there was life in a lot of our players. So I did something I don't normally do.
Oh, okay.
And I rewatched the game, and I rewatched it within 24 hours. I went and picked my son up from work at 11 o'clock last night, came home, switched on Fox Footy on the old KO, which I'm not contractually, and I can't even speak at the moment. I'm not contractually obliged to pump up unless KO wants to give me an even more discounted membership than the one I've already got. I do have a slightly discounted membership because
I've got a no discount membership and it's getting pricier every quarter, it feels like.
Yeah, I dropped my Netflix subscription down to the lowest one where I now get ads because they put their prices up. Everything's gone up. But so I switched it on just the Fox Footy channel, and the game was starting, and I was like, all right, here we go. So I was a glutton for punishment because I had to listen to that really bland commentary for a second time. But rewatching it though, and this is something that a lot of people tell me, and I don't normally pick up on it because I don't normally rewatch games, within a short period afterwards. I might watch them a few weeks later or highlights packages if I need to for a reason. So I noticed, obviously we knew who all the stars were, and we'll mention them later when the time comes. But I noticed guys like Rayner and Fletcher, Chuck, Motti, I did not notice Motti throughout the whole entire game, but geez,
I noticed him a couple of points, and he did some really good stuff.
Yeah, but when I watched it back, I like you, I noticed he did all these things, and that's going to be a question I'm going to ask a bit later about him. It's the question I asked last week, but Rayner, I felt like, and I don't want to bring up what Rayner did in the opening sort of stanza of the game just yet, because that's coming up later.
Yep.
But I felt like he did a lot of behind the scenes stuff and a lot of body work and that sort of thing. Fletcher, I thought this was probably Fletcher's best game of the year.
Oh, really? I don't remember noticing too much that Fletcher did. He did a couple of good things, actually, now I think back, but I don't remember him too much.
It's those things he does away from the ball that I'm starting to notice a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm doing it on purpose because earlier in the season I was a bit down on him, and I sort of was pretty vocal on the fact that I felt that his output was not good enough for that level. But I'm starting to see a lot of the things he does that don't necessarily result in kicks, disposals, marks or whatever on the stat sheet. But Chuck did a lot of stuff to help his teammates out. He's been doing it for weeks and weeks, and there was one passage of play where he got himself into a bad position and missed the mark, and he slapped himself in the hand. And I said, "See, he's angry with himself." He would have straight away. He would have gone, "What are you thinking, Charles?" Because I hear him say that all the time when I'm sitting in the front couple of rows at Marvel or wherever. But obviously he does do what people don't like, and he does get into some of his teammates at times as well.
Yeah, not a big fan of that.
Yeah, but and that's the thing. You see some guys doing a bit of finger pointing or whatever, and sometimes I sort of think, oh, maybe they're tasked with that by the coaching group. You're the guy who's the forward line captain or whatever.
Yep.
So we don't know. We don't know a lot of stuff. But I thought those guys on a second view, Rayner, Fletcher, Motti, and Chuck did some things that I didn't notice first time around. Another 10+ goal kickers again.
Yep, another big one.
And Deb reliably informed me, and I didn't even bother checking to confirm because I just know she's right, that we had 8 guys kick multiple goals.
Yep.
Logan Morris is one of those guys yet again.
Oh, he's so exciting, isn't
he? Yeah, he's got such a good football brain. And he's not overawed by the occasion at all.
Yeah, no, and look, that it kind of ties into my my ticks a little later. Not necessarily him specifically, but just his inclusion in that group. Tying back to something that you were just talking about with captains of lines and things like that.
Yep.
Obviously, Harrison.
I'm back.
You're back.
I think my internet died briefly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was very confused.
Yeah. All right. So, all right. Oh.
So, did you hear my question or?
No, the last thing I heard was you said, speaking of line captains, and you said, obviously, Harris Andrews, and that was the last thing I heard.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll just pick off from there and we'll just edit that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously Harris Andrews is the defensive captain, and he's our one of our main captains. And then we've got Lockie Neal, who's also one of our main captains and also in charge of the midfield.
Yep.
Who do you think that person is for the front line? Do you think it's Charlie, or do you think it's Joe or Eric? Because I can't see it being Eric or Joe, really.
Well,
It must be Charlie, right?
I know for a period of 1 or 2 years it was Eric Hipwood.
Okay.
And that was a period when people used to bag him and say, why is he always yelling at his teammates? And I knew, because I got it from very good source, that he was the forward line captain at the time.
When was that?
Look, it's going back a while when we had a very, very young team.
Okay, so pre-Joe.
Yeah, before Joe. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Joe, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Chuck either.
Yeah, look, I see Charlie giving out more instruction than I do Joe.
Yeah.
Joe's very not concerned with much. He's he's good and he's great, but I don't see him as a leader in that kind of sense.
He seems that way, but like when you hear other players talk about what he's like around the club and what he's like with them, it sort of makes you wonder, well, maybe he is in a bit more of a role than what we think he is. Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's like, with the other two lines, you can clearly say, yep, he's in charge. He's in charge. But it's much more ambiguous with the forward line. So it's interesting. One to kind of keep an eye on just to see if anyone steps up. It probably is Charlie. I can't really see it being too many other people.
The club did have, in the David Noble days, they did have like a second leadership group, per se, was called the Emerging Leaders. And there was a period, and this is when Noble's last year at the club he was on SEN saying that Chuck was the leader of the Emerging Leaders group. So he was like the young people's captain.
Yeah.
So, and they obviously, I guess, maybe had him earmarked for a bit more of a role. So maybe he does have that role. It kind of looks that way.
Yeah, well, he's, I think he's my age. I think he's a 94 kid. So I think he's 30 this year, if he hasn't turned 30 already. And I think Joe is a year younger than that. So, or maybe around the same.
Yeah, he's about the same, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It could be either of them. I think Charlie suits more leadership than probably Joe or Eric does. Just from how they communicate with the teammates, from what you can see on the field, obviously, we don't know what things are like behind closed doors or, and whatnot, but that's the vibe that I get anyway, that it's probably Charlie who's the equivalent for the forward line.
Yeah, I think so. And look, he's probably had the most experience in finals and whatever as well out of. He's played in more grand finals than anyone else in our lineup. Now that we've got none of the 84-year-old Hawthorn players.
Well, Dunkley and Neil have both been in one extra as well.
Yeah, Dunkley's played in two, hasn't he? But Neil was a sub in one of them. So does that even count?
Yeah, probably not. But I'd say because Dunkley's won a flag.
Yeah.
And then he's obviously lost one with us last year. So I think
Dunkley's played in three because he played in 21 as well.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot the Bulldogs were in that grand final.
I think the Bulldogs want to forget that they were in that grand final as well. I mean, it was. I think Christian Petrarca outscored him after half time, didn't he?
Yeah.
Jeez, he was good that day, but it really annoys me that they were trying to find a way to make sure that he got that one more possession than what Simon Black got in 03.
Oh, yeah.
Just leave it alone. Why can't they both be good? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's always got to one up each other.
Yeah, and I don't reckon Petrarca's the kind of guy that would have wanted to have a record over Simon Black either. He comes across as a pretty nice enough guy.
Yeah.
Unlike
I don't have any problems with Petrarca.
Yeah.
I don't think he's there's certain guys that I don't really like in the competition, but he's not really one of them. Like, sure, I get annoyed if he has a fantastic game against us. But I don't begrudge him, and I don't, think ill of him that I do certain other players. I don't like DeGoey, guys like that. I don't like Toby Green.
Yeah, obvious reasons for both of those guys. But something I noticed with Petrarca, actually, when we played Melbourne at the G last year, that game where they came back and got us by a point or whatever it was. The game that we don't want to remember. When the players do their little warm-ups, their pre-warm-up, the one where they just come out about an hour or so before and they just sort of muck around with their shirts on or whatever.
Yeah.
I noticed that Petrarca went up and hugged Lockie Neal and a few other boys as well. Broke away from his teammates, went up, hugged a few of the boys, and him and Lockie Neal had a bit of a bro hug and a big long chat. So, I noticed, I saw Tom Stewart do that a couple of years ago as well out at Cardinia Park. So I remember things like that. It's like, oh yeah, as much as we hate these guys because they're good and they play for someone else, they're actually human.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys grew up playing together and stuff as well. So yeah, it's interesting. It's so funny seeing that because it's an amusing thing to see now. But can you imagine like that happening in the 80s? Like how much their coaches would have just torn them to pieces.
Oh yeah, Malcolm Blight or Alan James or Lee Matthews even would have just
torn them to shreds.
Yeah.
Like, that's the enemy.
Yeah, even we had David Parkin and Robert Walls of Fitzroy in the 80s. And Robert Walls just he would come on, he made blokes box each other at training one day when he was at the Bears. So
yeah.
And he made one bloke stand in a circle and get boxed by the whole team. So he would I feel for Shane Strample. I mean, it's the only thing he's known for, unfortunately. I'm sure he was a good footballer, but geez. But yeah, Robert Walls would not have tolerated blokes being mates with the opposition, that's for sure.
No, definitely not.
Even Kevin Sheedy as well, he wouldn't have copped that. But I don't mind it. I love it.
Yeah, I've got no problem with it. It's unrealistic to think that all these guys hate each other. Sure, there's probably a few guys on different teams that can't stand each other, but these days that's the minority, and most of them get along really well.
Yeah, and as a sportsman at a very, very amateur level myself, I want to stress that fact. Third grade in Division 3. I've got blokes that I'm friends with that play for opposition clubs, and even guys who play for the clubs that are the big rivals to the club I play for.
Yeah,
you still have blokes that you like, and you catch up with them. You have a Great Northern after the game, and no, I'm not contractually obliged to mention Great Northern. It just seems to be what every cricket club in Geelong stocks behind their bar.
It's super popular up here too.
Yeah, actually, Deb was telling me about that the other week. I didn't realise. So
it's overtaken 4X and VB and
not the Melton Mangoes.
Great Northern's overtaken all of them in popularity.
Yeah. I can understand a visitor's beer, VB. It's not great.
First beer I ever tried was a VB. My dad let me try one when I was younger, and I hated it so much that it kind of put me off beer forever. I think it's just because it was BB that I hated beer so much.
Well, you'd be more into having a craft beer brewed by someone in a factory down the road than with an Angus beef burger deconstructed.
Of course. Deconstructed beer as well, just all of the individual ingredients.
Just had the yeast and the hops and the barley all in a separate pile. Look, my first beer was, being a West Australian, my first beer was an Emu Export, and same situation. That's not a good beer. It's terrible. Nobody likes it, but nobody really likes VB or Foster's, but they still drink it, don't they? So,
well, do we drink Foster's? That's more of an American thing when they're trying to be, they're trying to get their Australian on. And
I know some guys who drink Foster's. Funnily enough,
I don't think I've ever seen someone drink Foster's in real life.
I reckon I know two guys, and that's about it. I've tried it and it wasn't good.
No. Brilliant marketing campaign, but pretty shite beer.
Yeah. Mate, Australian beer is terrible compared to the only country that has worse beer than us is America.
Yeah, it's water beer.
Oh man, Miller and Bud and that. Oh, it's gross. Anyway, I digress.
This isn't the beer podcast.
We should do a beer episode one day. Get some guests on to tell us, you know how like so many other pods at the start of it, they'll crack open a beer and talk about it, and like, you know, that drives their whole pod. The All Aussie Hour that I pumped up a few episodes ago, they don't do it with beer. They do it with like, it'll be a drink that's relevant to what their subject is in that episode.
Oh yeah.
But one of the co-hosts, Mel, she lives in a dry district in the Northern Territory. She's moved to the Northern Territory recently, and it's a dry district, so she actually can't drink the drink.
Yep.
So it does leave for some awkward moments on their show. I'm going to make it my mission to get the other host Josie on our show one day, because she's a diehard Giants fan. So I'm going to send her. I'm going to slide into her DMs and try and get her on when we play the Giants. We'll see.
Oh, you found the Giants fan.
Oh, I know.
They're one fan.
I know. I actually know 5 Giants fans personally now. Would you believe? So,
are you sure it's not just one person wearing different wigs and fake mustaches and stuff?
Well, you probably know a bloke from a Facebook group from back in those days who surname resembled a crustacean. Who he may or may not be 3 of those 5 Giants fans.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But look, I do know. I genuinely know 5 fans. Plus, then there's Josie from Your Aussie Hour, who's the 6th one, and there's the Owen.
No, I know one myself. I kid, I jest. I do know one myself.
That makes up all 7 of their fans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I'm going to try and get Josie on. But I did. They've got a Facebook group for their listeners, and I did tell her that if every audio book in the world was narrated by her, I'd listen to all of them. So
you in love, mate?
Yeah, no, she's just got a listenable voice,
right?
Yeah.
I think after your recommendation, I did check out their podcast. It wasn't too bad, actually.
Yeah, they're a bit like us. They actually put a disclaimer on at the start now saying, if you don't want to listen to us talk about waffle, just get to the 14-minute mark. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, we
waffle so much we couldn't do that though, because we just waffle continuously throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, we mix it up a little bit anyway. So we'll go on a tangent while we're talking about something relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we're doing right now as we speak.
Yeah, exactly.
So getting back to Motty, Darcy Wilmot, for those who don't know the players' nicknames, 102 AFL fantasy points. And like, that's, 100 fantasy points is amazing. I don't know what he got in Supercoach. I don't play Supercoach and don't really care. But like, yeah, he's obviously doing a lot of things right. I'm gonna have him in the top 6 in the club champion this year at this stage.
Yep.
Don't know where he is in the coaches' votes in that award, because I don't ever seem to see any posts about him anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be doing well in the coaches' votes, like, competition wide, but I think he would be rated pretty highly internally. Same with a guy like Lester.
Yeah. Look, so on Lester too, and I said it last week against the Saints, like, he has a good game every week. You can't fault his effort, his endeavour and all that. But he does, most weeks he gets those couple of goals kicked on him, and sometimes they're from free kicks that you could go either way on. But he does get those 2 or 3 goals kicked on him on occasions. And to me, that still doesn't mean he's had a bad game, because everything else he does is good. I mean, he took a great one-hander yesterday as well that blew me away, because he's normally a safe two-hander.
Yep.
He normally takes the safe 2-hand option, but there was that one as well where he tapped the ball out of bounds when he realised it was beyond his means to mark it right on the boundary line, and the Port players went wild. Their fans didn't really say much, but the commentators were onto it, and I was onto it. I think Dermy referred to it as a professional out of bounds, and a bit more on that later. I don't know if you noticed, but after Chuck kicked the goal, he did the Adam Goods spear. And
I didn't notice that. I noticed that he was excited, but I think I was texting you at the time. But I knew he was pretty up and about that he kicked. I think he kicked 2 though, didn't he?
Yeah, and it was one to right of screen, so whichever end that was. And Cal Archie was right next to him, and I was watching him. I was watching his body language. I think he's going to do the spear. And then I thought, nah, he won't do it because you'll get booed. Adam Goods got booed when he did it, and Michael O'Loughlin got booed when he did it. And then my daughter's going, Dad, he's doing the spear. Like, I was like, how good is that? I loved it. I don't know.
His first one or his second one? I can't even remember.
No, because he kicked one right at the end. Because he kicked one to bring up the 150. So it would have been the first one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought Cal Archie as well was pretty good yesterday.
Yeah, he got 2 himself.
Yeah, they mentioned, like, Mark Rasciuto took great delight in mentioning, he got 4 against Adelaide, but he's only kicked 7 for the season, so he's only had the one good game. And well, maybe you don't watch enough footy, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Rui didn't have his best day in the com box yesterday, and he doesn't have too many good ones anyway.
No, he said something yesterday. He called someone a superstar. I can't remember who it was, but it was one of the Port Adelaide players who's definitely not a superstar. And I just thought it was so strange.
It might have been Todd Marshall or one of those.
It was someone who I remember thinking, like, I don't think anyone would classify that person as a superstar.
But I mean, just the word superstar and the word star gets bandied, and champion gets bandied about so goddamn much. Like, it's just ridiculous. I mean, we're allowed to say that they were just good players. You don't have to pump them up. Like, you don't have to say, Port Adelaide champion Kane Corns has an opinion. You can just say Kane Corns has an opinion. People are still going to read it and have a counter opinion. It doesn't matter if he played for Port Adelaide or if he was a good player or not. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But if they start calling David King a North Melbourne star, I'm going to arc up. Good old Kingy. So, I wrote in my notes that, and I sort of brought this up before, that, the Adelaide fans were louder than the Port fans. And I loved, my daughter didn't like this, but I did. I loved it. I fed off this vibe. Whenever we kicked a goal, you could hear a pin drop.
Yep.
And my daughter's like, why are they so quiet? Because it was us.
Yeah, but it was disappointing. Like, cause, I expected boos or something, but, some kind of angry response from the fans in regards to us, like, us doing well. But they were just so quiet when we were doing well, but so angry at their own players and their own coaches and stuff like that. It was strange.
Yeah, when I used to go watch the Eagles in the late 80s, early 90s, before I left WA, it was like that. If the home team breathed, it would be just chaotic scenes. But if another team did something, it'd be just dead silence.
Yeah.
And that was their way of creating that home atmosphere.
Mm.
And I know a lot of people think that the Eagles fans boo more than everyone else. Watch a Freo game. I mean, the Freo fans once booed the Eagles' Josh Kennedy, and I could not think of any reason to boo that guy.
Mm.
He's one of the most stand-up citizens the AFL's ever seen. If they're booing Andrew Gaff, fair enough.
I've seen Essendon fans boo injured players walking off the field from other teams before. So
yeah, well, Hawthorn did that to Hugh McCluggage when he got concussed that time last year.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There was a lot of empty seats there as well, even before the great embarkation at 3/4 time.
Mm. Did they have the emergency tarps ready?
Hey, never tear up the tarps, mate. I thought Alir, he's cooked. I reckon.
I don't know what's going on with him. He was pretty good at Swans, but he was pretty ordinary for them.
Yeah, he had a good sort of first or so yearish, but I said to my daughter at the start of the game, he shaved his head. He's joined the Baldy Club with me. I'm down with this. I like it. He looks good.
He had a mohawk for a while, didn't he? A mohawk?
Yeah. He had him and Matt Chol were sort of competing to see who could have the black and bleached mohawk that looked better and whatever. But he had the dusty for a while. But yeah, he went to Chrome Dome, and as a fellow Chrome Domer myself, I was because I have shaved my head recently in support of a family member who's getting chemo. So. Yeah, I was like, I'm down with this, Aaliyah. You're on Team Baldy.
Yep.
but he didn't play like a Baldy should in comparison to our great Baldy Craig
Starcevich.
Brandon Starcevich.
Yeah, true. He's been electric since he came back from his injury.
Yeah, he has. He's been great. It's the stars that we know and love. I mean,
Yeah.
I never gave up on him. You and I had a bit of a powwow early in the year about him.
Oh yeah, like look, you don't lose talent. You
No.
know, it's clear that he, like a lot of other guys on the team at the time, the morale was down, or there's something kind of off with them in their heads. But they all know how to play football. And they all know how to play football really well. And
Yeah,
the last couple of weeks have shown that they've got their mojo back.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Zach Bailey as well was another guy who started to show a bit more yesterday as well.
Yeah.
And
Look. Yes, he's doing much better, but he's still doing some really silly things with his disposal.
I can only remember one fend off, but I got told he did three. So maybe I was messaging you when he did two of them or something.
I really want to know if he gets told to not do it, or if he gets told to go for it, or like. But it just doesn't work for him. It just never ever works for him. Rayner, on the other hand, do you remember that one clearance where he busted out and he pushed about three guys off him and he almost kicked a goal?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and
that was pretty incredible. That was one of the better things I've ever seen Rayner do. Would have been even better if he set up a goal or kicked a goal or something, but it was incredible the way he busted out. Took down about 3-4 players to get the ball out.
I reckon that was the one where Dermy's gone, oh, his core body strength is just amazing. And Rishudo, I'm pretty sure, was having a bit of a love fest with him. That was about the most animated that the commentators got.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Port also lost in a sandful, ironically, to Norwood, who we spoke about the other night, by 83 points. They are absolutely cooked.
Yeah.
Really lacking in depth. And yeah, we'll get to our VFL before we wrap up, obviously. So we'll just put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to bring up from our actual game, other than what you're going to bring up in your ticks?
Yeah, no, look, I just the ticks and crosses, I think, and obviously the player of the week and all that sort of stuff. I think other than that, we'd probably just be treading over ground we've already gone over.
Yeah, because I scrolled past a couple of things in my notes that either you or I mentioned earlier. So there was a big narrative about our form at home earlier in the season, and it was brought up again yesterday by one of the commentators. I think it was Hutto, that we haven't been a sure thing at home, but Port are now, I think, 50% at home this season. And Adelaide Oval was generally a bit of a fortress to them, but the teams they've lost to, I'm pretty sure, are teams currently outside of the 8. Obviously, there's us, there's Melbourne, and there's a couple more. I went through it all yesterday, and they beat Essendon by a lot there, which Essendon are in the top 4, which that's a pretty good get. But yeah, their form against middle of the road teams at home, it's not great.
Look, there's one of two narratives that the Port fans or the media can take out of the game, and you could take it either way. It's you could take it as Port got flogged by a grand finalist from last year, or you could take it as Port got flogged by a team that was among one of the worst teams.
Yeah, well, we're in
season.
30th place going into the round.
Yeah, exactly. So, it depends on how you want to look at it. Do they want to get, say that they got flogged by a grand finalist, or flogged by a team that was pretty underperforming and pretty poor for the first half of the year?
Yeah.
You can look at it either way, and both of them are true. I don't know which one would make them feel better, but
yeah, well, I think the narrative in the media is. And I noticed like Damien Barrett and a couple of other guys, Tony Jones was another one on the 9 Footy show. I watched a couple of YouTube clips before we came on air. They were really up and about how well we're playing. I think Nathan Brown was another one on that show as well. But generally everyone else, their whole narrative is about Ken Hinkley. Is he going to survive? Are Port cooked? And so, look, normally I would complain and say, oh, why can't they talk about us? We won. But I'm not too fussed at the moment.
Yeah, I do get frustrated with that sort of stuff, because it seems like whenever we have a good win, it's then that like the narrative is how crap is the other team, and then it's the opposite. If we get if we lose, then it's how good is the team that won?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah. But in this instance, I'm not too fussed because I think we just need to go quietly about our business for the rest of the year and
mm,
just keep staying under the radar and keep winning.
yeah.
It's,
Yeah, I guess if we're not getting talked about as much, there wouldn't be as much pressure. But then at the same time, I mean, the club talks about they don't really pay attention to the external stuff anyway. So I mean,
no.
don't know how true that is, but that's what they say.
Well, Joe Danaher doesn't even have a TV, allegedly.
Allegedly.
We have to throw that word in.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I don't know. I mean, you hear players in interviews, or you just sort of, a couple of times at say family days or whatever, you talk, you bring something up with a player and about something that you heard in the media, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I saw that." So yeah.
Mm.
So the other big question I've got, we've touched on this already. Did we put the queue in the rack?
Yes, we did.
And
Not happy about it.
do you think it's because we got a 6-day turnaround against Melbourne? Or do you think it's just a case of maybe it was a tough, hard physical game and they wanted to rest the boys up and play a bit of Bruce Reid footy in the last quarter with a big buffer?
I don't know. I mean, look, it's hard to be disappointed with a 79-point win.
Yeah.
And I think in previous years, if I'd had that complaint, a lot of people would have just gone, "Oh, just it's 79 points, move on." How could you be unhappy with that? And I'm not unhappy with it. It's just if we'd kept up the same momentum that we'd gathered throughout the game, we would be in a slightly better position. And because of the poor start we had to the season, if it comes down to we're sneaking into the 8 or things like that at the end of the year, because everyone's pretty tight at the moment with
Yeah.
how much they're winning, it will come down to percentage, and we don't want to regret just missing the 8 on a game where we could have put the foot down for another 10 minutes and it would have meant something more impactful down the line for getting to finals or something like that. Look, who knows if it makes a difference, but I think we need as much as many wins and percentage boost as we can get at the moment. And it was disappointing to see that they kicked a few. I mean, how many last quarter goals did they kick? They kicked about like a third of their total in the last quarter.
I think they won the last quarter by a goal in the end, or it was pretty even, Stevens. I know at one stage that one of the commentators said we kicked 3-2 and they'd kicked 3-1, but there were more scores after that. So I kind of look, that episode of The Simpsons where Homer's on the jury and he's got those glasses on that make it look like his eyes are open.
Yeah.
The commentary was doing that to me. They were like the atmosphere. There was no atmosphere. It was so flat that even though I got excited every time we kicked a goal, I was, like I said, my heart rate never got above like 50 something beats per minute for the whole game.
Yeah.
And you'd think like, we beat North by 70 points earlier this year and we're up and about. And we've won this one by 70 points and we're like, it wasn't really exciting to watch.
Well, I just looked through it. So they kicked 4 last quarter goals.
Yeah.
And we kicked 5 last quarter goals.
Oh, there you go. So we went up by a goal.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few behinds as well either way, but it just felt like we could have done a lot better in the last quarter. Like, I don't know. Like, I think we tried to lock down a bit too. There was a lot of, like, we were trying to be defensive, and it felt like there was a lot of plays where we could have gone for it. We could have sent it up the other end and we could have tried for a goal, but instead it was just kicking it back and forward, doing that Ross ball kind of just kick it from one side of the field back to the other and just hold it and free up the time. And it felt like we were trying to run down the clock from basically the start of the fourth quarter. And it's just weird. Like, it was just, I didn't like it.
That's an old habit of the club that we don't like as supporters. Yeah. But and Essendon used to do it back in the early 90s, and I went to a few of their games with a few mates, and they'd be bleeding it. They'd be like, "Stop doing that!
Yeah,
kick it forward."
Oh yeah, like it's just and we gave up a few goals doing that.
Yeah,
we kicked a few, but we probably could have kicked a few more. But anyway, I think we just take the points and move on and worry about the Demons next week, which is a home game for us. And I'm actually going to that game, so that should be a
Yeah,
good one.
well, your in-laws are Demons fans, aren't
Yes, yeah. It's so I'm actually going for that reason. It's my father-in-law's birthday that weekend, so we're all going to go together. So it'll be good.
they? There you go. So hopefully it's a good game for you and not for your in-laws. No offense, I'm
Yeah.
sure they're lovely people.
Oh, they're fantastic people, but
Yeah.
no, I think it's gonna. Hopefully, it'll be a big win for us. But we'll talk about that later in the week anyway.
Yeah,
When we preview that game.
we will. So just a couple of little things on the umpires. I had more written down, but I'm not going to bother about most of the stuff. But how did you see the part where the goal umpire had to ask the two boundary umpires if it was a goal or not?
Yes, Dan Hoskins, the goal umpire. Yes, I did see that. I
That
thought
that was
confusing,
hilarious.
to say the least.
That was so funny.
Uh,
Oh God.
Look, if he wasn't already wearing glasses, I would recommend to get some glasses.
Yeah, there was one today in the Freo Gold Coast game. I watched about 10 minutes of that, and there was one. Oh, it was a Freo player. He clearly hit the post and deflected, and everyone was acting like it went straight through. You could hear Brad Johnson in the commentary going, "Oh yeah, no, that's definitely snuck through." And actually, no, it wasn't in the Freo Gold Coast. It was in the Essendon game, which I watched a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm a shocker. Yeah, either way, you could hear Brad Johnson going, "Oh yeah, that was definitely a goal," and then he's kind of like, "Oh, maybe it wasn't." But yeah, and poor Shadow Brain as well. Like his first passage of play in yesterday's game, he got tackled high by Alir, actually poleaxed him.
Yeah,
and it wasn't rewarded, and it was a bit dirty on that. I mean, I feel
the same kind of thing happened a couple of weeks ago where he didn't get brought on for much of the game. When he did, he gave over the ball. I think it was his debut game, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
He gave away a free kick straight away.
His first involvement in AFL football was to, give away a free kick that was neither here nor there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we still are shocking with the sub, aren't we?
Yeah. Look, so Lohman was subbed out. It says that he was injured. Do we know what was going on with that?
He did land. I think he landed awkwardly at one point and was sort of hobbling around a little bit. But I think he might also have copped a bump. But don't quote me on.
He did cop a whack at one stage, and he was kind of hobbling. I think they said it was more of a. Well, I mean, the commentators suggested it could be a corky, but I think he played on for a bit. But maybe he got ruled out with that after a little while.
That's probably the one, because I do now remember the Dermy joking about how many corkies he copped in the 80s and how painful it was, and how much more it hurts when they get them rubbed out. And can't confirm that is correct. It does hurt like hell.
Jeez, it's impossible for him to not talk about himself when he's talking about other people, isn't it? It's impossible for Dermy, isn't it? I don't mind him, but geez, he loves talking about himself.
Yeah, I mean,
But anyway, I hope Lohman's not injured. One thing I wanted to mention as well was at the beginning of the game. I mean, everyone's been talking about, Ashcroft's due next week. He's coming back in for the Demons game, all this sort of stuff. Who squeezes out for Ashcroft? And I was thinking, Bruce Reville has been, a bit quiet. He's done some good things, but he's been pretty quiet. Hasn't really justified keeping his spot in the team, in my opinion. Like he's done a couple of good things, but he's not like a mainstay, in my opinion. And then, as I was thinking that in the first quarter of this game, he comes out and has the best game he's played for the club. He kicked two, and he had a clearance, and he did some good stuff, but he probably played his best game for the club. So there goes that theory. I mean, I don't know who's going to come out for Ashcroft now. I don't think it's going to be Bruce.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming back through the VFL either. So
no, someone's making way. I can't see who it is at this stage. I think someone's going to be very unlucky.
Yeah, that's gonna be a a bit of a talking point during the week. I think a lot of people will start bringing that up once they realise it's coming around.
Yeah, well, after Tuesday, we'll have the injury list, so we'll see if Kai's actually injured or if he's just, they just were being cautious during the game or whatever. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, Noah Ainsworth was, he got injured, so they changed that and brought Brain in as the sub.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to make Ashcroft a sub. That's definitely not going to happen.
No, I would have thought so.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting. One to watch during the week. And
so Jared Berry's a bit of a watch and act as well because he did hurt his ankle at one point, but he did play the game. He played the game out. So, and the thing with Kylo, man, if he is injured, we can just play his brother Jake instead because he played pretty well in the VFL yesterday, and they look enough like each other that no one's going to notice, right?
Yeah, sure, that'll work.
Bit like Tom Cutler when he got suspended, and we joked about his twin brother Tony Butler playing.
That's classic.
Yeah. All right, so I'm just gonna we'll move on from all that. I'm just gonna get into a couple of weirdo stats, a couple of things, and I haven't put them in order, so let's deal with it.
Sure.
So Kelly Underwood and other commentators, but mostly Kelly, mentioning the debutant, the youngster, the 20-year-old or the 18-year-old or whatever. We had 15 times of that I counted.
Mm-hmm.
Had 7 instances of someone saying their eyes are darting around.
Yep.
Which is that's something I say a bit, so I can't be harsh on them for that. There were 12 instances of a player being called Finlayson when it wasn't Finlayson.
I must admit, I kind of forgot what Finlayson looked like for a while as well.
Yeah, I'll bring him up again a bit later. Not so much him, but something to do with him indirectly. Okay. The Butters versus Neil matchup that wasn't happening. That was brought up 12 times, which is 12 more times than what had actually happened on the ground.
Yeah.
We already mentioned Georgiades giving away frees to Stars twice. I started a count when it happened twice within about a minute.
Yeah, it could have been more than that, but there was 2 that were really close together.
Yeah, my favourite one was the professional something or other. We only had 6 of that this time. And the term clean hands was used 8 times.
Only 8?
Yeah, only 8. That's 8 more than what they needed to, because I'm sure there's other things they can say. So
I think so, but they loved repeating phrases. Lowering the eyes, raking left foot,
long levers. I heard that a couple of times actually, but
another one I just remembered, and Underwood did it. Go gadget arms when they're talking about Harris Andrews lifting his arms.
Yeah, and they used to say that about Dustin Fletcher. So I'm not surprised they found.
Anytime he lifts his arms to do anything, it's go gadget arms.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised they found another player to use it for, because I don't mind it. It's a good one. I used to like watching Inspector Gadget when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
I got to watch the OG version though.
The animated one.
Yeah, and I even got an Inspector Gadget show bag at the Darwin show when I lived up there. So.
Oh yeah.
I had one of those, those little buzzy things you put on it's like a ring and it has like a buzzer that goes inside your finger. And when you shake hands with someone, it gives them a shock.
Oh, yeah.
I had one of them in it, and that was the best thing. I went to school on the Monday, and I just kept shaking hands with everyone, like teachers, kids, like the cleaner, the janitor, whatever. I didn't care.
Does the Darwin show, do the show bags up there have the Birdie Beetles?
I don't know, because I've never been a Birdie Beetle guy. When I was that age, I used to just get the ones that had toys in them.
I can't remember if it was just a Brisbane one, or if all the state shows have.
It's the Birdie Beetles are big in Victoria.
Yeah. Okay, so it must be everywhere then.
Yeah, but look, I only went to the Darwin show once. I went to the Perth show plenty of times, and I was more sort of into getting stuff with toys in it and getting chocolates or lollies, I must admit.
Yeah.
And look, like every kid, I love chocolates and lollies, but you could go down to the milk bar and buy 100 lollies for $1 back in those days. So,
yeah, look, you're right, but there was something special about getting the lollies, because I knew I could buy a couple of bags of lollies for like $10 or whatever, just
Yeah.
from the shops, and I would get more bang for my buck doing that. But the idea of like, oh, I could get the Whiz Fizz one, or I could get the Mars Bar one, like the show bags. It was always much more exciting. Until my early teens, I think is when I started to lose interest. But I was a go every year to the Eka and get the show bags kind of kid. I was super excited about that stuff.
Yeah, well, I think being a diabetic as well, it probably wasn't really in my best interest to be eating that much lollies and stuff.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
It's funny, like you're talking about like a couple of bags of lollies for $10. So during the third quarter, I said to my daughter, "Oh, I've got this Uber Eats voucher that I got from doing a survey."
Oh yeah,
and I said, like, if you want, I'll get you a bag of lollies or a chocolate or something, and we'll get it delivered from the survey. Because they do that, right? And I was like,
yeah, of course.
And I'm going to get myself a Kit Kat.
Yep.
I really need to have a break, and I'm not leaving the room. So yeah, I got on and I ordered the Kit Kat was $4.50, which is probably what you pay at a survey these days. But she got a bag of M&Ms and it was like $7.50.
Yeah.
I called my son out. My son was getting ready for work, and I called him out and I said, like, do you want something from the server? I'm going to get it on Uber Eats. And he goes, oh, show me. And I gave him my phone. He's looking, he's going, oh, $7.50 for M&Ms, $9.50 for Skittles. He goes, nah, I'm just going to go quickly walk down to the shopping centre. We're only 400 metres away from that shopping centre.
Yeah.
He goes, and I'll just go to Woolies and grab something. And I'll quickly come back, because he didn't start work for an hour anyway. And he's come back and he had a bag of M&Ms and a bag of Skittles. And he goes, these were $3 each.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, right.
Super inflated on that app.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's actually insane how expensive stuff is. Yeah, I could go on a tangent about that sort of stuff. But like even just like meals at restaurants, like it's like several dollar difference per meal.
Yeah, it is.
In the app than if you were just to go into the restaurant. I know you're paying for convenience and all that sort of stuff, but the fees are insane.
A couple of times I've been at the gym and done a really heavy workout, and I've gone, all right, now I need to carb up a bit afterwards, so I'll get a burger or like a small like a margarita pizza or something like that.
Yeah.
And I've ordered it through that, and I look at it and I'm like, okay, I've got to pick a place that's got 49 cents delivery fee.
Yeah.
15 to 20 minutes delivery time. Otherwise, it's no deal.
Yep.
I'm such a tight ass. But yeah, Uber Eats is a funny one. But look, obviously that took off during the COVID lockdowns, and my partner of the time had a birthday, and all her family were in WA, and we obviously couldn't go to a restaurant, so I ordered. And I'm going to say it the Victorian way, so just deal with it. I ordered 5 Parmas.
Parmies.
Parmos, mate. We're just called Parmos.
Oh, Parmos, yeah.
I'm a country boy. We chuck O on the end of everything.
Yeah.
We ordered them from a joint, and they came and we got the best china out and put them on the good plates and whatever. It was like, if you can't go to the pub can come to you. And it cost me like $150. So I was thinking, if we had have actually gone to the restaurant, it probably would have been about 105.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is.
Jeez. Yeah, look, it was super helpful during COVID.
It was.
I even did a bit of driving for them during COVID, just as a bit of extra cash and whatnot. And man, people were desperate during that time. Like they'd pay anything.
Oh yeah. So I guess we went on a tangent there. So I'll get back to the media stuff. So started a game. Hutto said the Lions haven't taken the scalp of a top 4 team this year. Well, we beat Melbourne when they were second on the ladder. So there you go, Hutto. And we beat Port, who was 6th on the ladder at the time yesterday. So there's another one.
They're very picky and choosy about that sort of stuff when it matters, because they'll go, oh, no, we were talking about if they were top 4 at the time when they played them, or no, we're talking about when they're when the top 4 set at the end of the year. And it's like, well, they're just very picky and choosy to try and make teams look better or worse.
Yeah,
when they decide to make those stats count or not count.
Yeah, and I could cherry pick the stats like they do and say, well, we've beaten the Bulldogs and the Gold Coast, who have both been in the 8 at different times as well. But let's not split hairs. So obviously we didn't have Dwayne Russell, so we've got no Dwayne Zingers, but we've got a couple from Hutto. When Josh Sin, who we talked about on Thursday night, kicked a goal, kicked his first ever AFL goal.
I can't believe that was his first ever goal. He's been assistant for a couple of years now.
Yeah, and he said that will always be the original Sin goal. Well done, Hutto.
Been holding on to that one since he was drafted.
He has. You just know that he was planning that one out. He's like, one day I'm going to get to use this. And Oscar McInerney kicked a goal, and he's gone, a big goal for the Big O. And you know what? He kicked another 2 more, and I started shouting that out.
Yeah, bloody oath. I thought he was going on. He went on a roll there. I thought, oh, geez, he's having a game of his career.
Yeah, I'm sure he might get a mention later. Kelly Underwood, and I don't like to harsh her too much because I think there's a lot worse commentators than her.
Oh yeah,
but she mentioned a bloke called Hip Woad a couple of times. Speaking of Hipwood and Hip Woad, Prosciutto got Hipwood and Andrews mixed up at one point.
Yeah, I mean, they don't play for SA teams.
Yeah, they play at opposite ends of the ground. But I mean, they're both born in Victoria, so maybe, they're both 204 centimetres tall. So, maybe that's what it is. And they've both got long arms and long legs, and they kind of look like baby giraffes when they're running. But
true.
Yeah, but that, number 30 and number 31. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was going to say they're next to each other in the locker room. Maybe they got similar mannerisms from just doing all that sort of stuff. And they train on each other all the time as well, I guess.
I don't think Jack Payne's lining up on Hipwood and Drills, is he?
No, probably not.
No.
He'd be on Danaher, I reckon.
Oh, geez, I don't know if he would. I reckon Dara Joyce or someone would be on Danaher. There's no real obvious matchup for Jack Payne.
Yeah, I've got to start watching intra-club games a bit more closely.
Yeah. And I tried to defend Prosciutto there because I have gone to his pub that him and Rory Sloane owned together and had I've been there twice and had really good meals. But yeah, that's where it ends. He's a knob. Except that time when the Port and Crows players had that punch on after a game at a hotel somewhere, and Prosciutto, I nearly dropped a naughty word. Prosciutto punched the living daylights out of a Port player that I didn't like. So
when was this?
Oh, this is way back, mate. You would have been about probably 12 at the time, if that. And it wouldn't have made news in Queensland because the Broncos were up and about.
Yeah,
back then.
It's the only sport that makes any news in Channel 7 in Queensland.
Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly see if I've still got this grab that I sent you. Speaking of Mark Prosciutto. Got to go back the other way. Scroll. I'm sure everyone knows what it was. All right, here we go. I got to just turn the volume up. Just give me a sec. All right.
Friendly fire. Knee into poor man's Petracas.
So Mike Prosciutto referring to Starcevic as a bit of a poor man's Petracas, as he said. I think he meant that. He didn't mean it in a bad way, but it's really offended a lot of people, and you and I were both sort of.
It was a weird one.
Not really impressed by it at the time. The more I listened to it, the more it's kind of like he's realised that he's a bit of a faux pas as soon as he said it.
Yeah, he's pulled himself up before he finished his sentence.
Yeah, and he's got that sort of that awkward silence at the end of it, and you can hear the really nervous, awkward laughter from Hutto or Dermy, where they've kind of gone, "Ooh, this is not going to go down well with the Brisbane fans."
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a bit of a shocker. But like I said, the more I listen to it, the less I'm offended by it. But still, it needs to be better than that.
Yeah, look, I wasn't really offended. It was just kind of like why say it? Like it's just
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing that happened to Petrarca, so I guess that's where that reference came from. But yeah,
Mm.
yeah. All right, well, done there. Do you want to go straight into the ticks and crosses, or do you want to insert the VFL first?
I actually didn't get to watch the VFL because I had to do some family stuff.
Yep.
I had
Or
to,
yeah, go on.
yeah, I had to get my tax sorted and I had to take my daughter to dance and a few other things. So I actually missed pretty much all of the VFL. So did you actually watch it this week?
I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I've seen enough to sort of, I guess, have an opinion.
Mm,
So yeah, well, look, we'll do that now, and then we'll get into the ticks and crosses.
sure. We'll do a quick
Um,
VFL wrap.
yeah, it's going to be quick because I mean, like the AFL was a pretty boring sort of comprehensive win.
Mm.
But yeah, so we played Frankston Dolphins at Brighton Homes, 50-point win. Henry Smith played in the ruck,
Okay, well,
and
he's been playing forward a lot in the VFL this
yeah,
season.
yeah, he was pretty dominant. He got 23 disposals, 36 hitouts, 6 clearances. That's like that's a massive game for a ruckman. That's almost sort of Max Gawn territory. I know it's not at
Mm.
the same level of football, and Frankston are not a big club,
Yep.
but like that's got him. I don't know where Darcy Fort was. I didn't see any mention of him anywhere. I didn't see any of him.
He's been very quiet in the VFL the last couple of weeks, but I have
Yeah,
watched some of the games. I try and watch it every weekend. It's just sometimes the timing doesn't work out too well, and it's hard to watch the
yeah,
replays of them. But he's been one of our more quiet players in the VFL,
yeah.
which has been interesting.
Yeah, but like Henry Smith, yeah, he was on fire. Kalen Lane sort of didn't look like he was playing as much time in the ruck.
Mm.
Dev Rob, big numbers. He got 30 plus, 10 clearances. I'm interested where you think he sits at the moment.
I think he sits in probably going to go back to Western Australia at the end of the year, to be honest.
Yeah, look,
Um,
I wouldn't begrudge him for it either.
no, look, and that's not me saying I don't want him on the team. That's me saying I think he's too good to be a VFL player, but there's not a spot for him in the
Yeah,
list. And I mean,
especially,
like, Ashcroft's coming back.
yeah,
We're going to drafting another Ashcroft who's supposed to be a top 2 draftee this year.
yeah,
Obviously the rest of their junior season has to play up, but at the moment, Toomey's rating him as a top 1 or 2 player for the draft this year. And then we've got Marshall coming in as well. So it's like, how do you fit all those guys in?
yeah. And
And
even just with Will Ashcroft coming in, that shuts the door on him a little bit because obviously Will is more highly rated by the club. Clearly, I mean, that's not just us making an observation based on what we see. That's the fact that the club makes it pretty clear.
yeah,
Yeah, look,
and it's like I know that Levi hasn't confirmed that he's picked us yet, but it's the biggest open secret in football that he's coming because
yeah,
I think even Fagan the other week was talking about when he comes at the
yeah,
end of the year. It wasn't like if he chooses to come to us and if we can make it work. It was when Levi plays next year. It's like they're talking about it like it's a sure thing. It's already done deal. And I mean,
yeah,
we heard on the Raw deal, they mentioned that they're already setting up a bedroom for him in one of the players' houses, and like it's so done. It's so over the line. So
yeah. I think you might find that Mummy and Daddy are moving back up to Queensland as
yeah,
well.
exactly. So
Yeah,
that's as done deal as it gets. It's just going to be how much does it cost.
yeah,
So I mean, if I'm Dev, I you know the club that he has a connection to in W, like he's from WA. His uncle was a club legend at the Eagles.
yep.
I think the Eagles really could use him at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, they could use an inside mid with a bit of grunt.
His disposal's not great, but he's
No,
pretty good at a lot of other things.
yeah, and like he can take on a role. Like he's shown that he can be a like almost like a tagger or a cool or whatever you like to call him.
Mm,
Run with. They use that one as well. He can do that role, and the Eagles could probably use someone like that because, I mean, Elijah Hewitt's not getting on the field, and I mean they played Ryan Marrick, who's a key forward as a wingman,
yeah.
this weekend because they just they don't have the depth in that position, and guys like Jermaine Jones just isn't. Like, there's a couple others whose names, like Campbell Chess, is still pretty young. They're not really up to it. Liam Ryan's playing in the midfield at the moment just because they just don't have the cattle there.
Yeah.
So they could really use Devon. I love the guy. I really do.
Oh, me too. I'd be
And-
sad to see him go, but I wouldn't be bitter with him if he did.
Yeah, I want to see him play regular senior AFL level football because he's good enough.
Yeah, and I thought the same thing about Reece Matheson last year.
Yeah.
I was like, I really hope another club gives him a go, but they didn't. But look, I hope Dev, he gets to go back home, and I don't. Maybe he wants to try and fight it out and fight for a spot here, and try and make our best team. But at the moment, I mean, he's pretty far back.
I think if we were to play in another grand final this year, he may fight it. Think, well, I'm going to fight for a spot in the team. But if we don't, and the Eagles chuck something his way, and it's a good deal for all parties, I think he'll be at the Eagles next year.
I mean, he got 33 touches, 5 tackles, and 10 clearances. Like, that's a pretty good game.
That's a really solid game. And Jimmy Tunstall also got 10 clearances. I think he's he's a little bit younger. He's still got a bit, plenty of time to develop and fight his way into the team.
Yeah, well, and then and he's another Western Australian guy as well. And then you've got Jackson Pryor, another Western Australian guy who's struggling to get into the team. So maybe there'll be a package deal at the end of the year of send a few guys to, the Western Australian clubs and get some picks back for Levi and Marshall. Who knows?
Yeah, and I thought that Pryor didn't really have anywhere near his best game of the season yesterday either.
No, but he played pretty well last week, I think.
Yeah, his form's been pretty good for most of the year. But that game he played in the AFL, he wasn't great.
Yeah.
Brandon Ryan kicked 4 goals.
Yeah.
Sharpie kicked 3, had about 21-ish disposals. Will McLaughlin, Taj Aberley, and Rowan Bailey all kicked 2 each as well. Taj Aberley's an interesting one because he's been playing really good footy all year in the VFL, but we've never taken that step to get him on as a rookie or even on our list at all.
No, and he's around that same kind of mark that Bruce Revel was kind of at. Like, I think they were both eligible for the same draft the same year.
Yeah.
And then they both were kind of kept on as mature age recruits several years after their own draft year. So, look, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a rookie spot at some stage, but yeah, it's a weird one. Not many guys have hung on as long as him without getting a shot.
He has a little bit of an incentive to hang around because he does form part of a power couple with Lily Postlethwaite. So, but as we know, the power couples don't always work out for keeping them both on the list. And speaking of which, Oscar McFadden playing for Sturt, good mate of mine who's a big Sturt fan called Oscar over today and asked him to give me a big thumbs up in a photo. So he sent it to me. So that good on you, Oscar. But Will McLaughlin kicking a couple of goals. He's
one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. If Kai Lohman does come out, there could be an opening there for him. Although it's more likely that Will Ashcroft will come in and we'll just rejig the magnets a bit.
I don't see so Craven did all right, but I don't see the other guy.
Beacon I didn't really notice any of. So.
Well, here we go, Luke Beacon.
Yeah, he was good in the first 2 games he played, but I didn't notice him.
15 touches, 1 clearance, not too exciting.
When you win by that much, the backline guys aren't going to be getting as much of the ball, are they?
Yeah, that's true. 50-point wins.
Not when your midfield's pretty dominant. So my boy Ewan McPherson, who I flagged a couple of times during the year, he's been up and about. He did pretty well yesterday. Like I think he got 90-odd fantasy points. And
what position is he? Do you know?
So he was playing down back earlier in the year when I saw him play live.
Yep.
I have a feeling because he kicked a goal, I think, yesterday as well. So I have a feeling he might be playing a bit closer to the forward half of the ground now.
Yeah.
Like in front of the ball somewhere. So it's hard to tell, like really, when you're watching TV because blokes just are everywhere. You know what I mean? It's like the modern day football. You can't just go, well, he's definitely a fullback or he's definitely a centre half forward or whatever, because everybody's technically a midfielder these days.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially when you're coaching a rep side and you ask the guys, all right, put your hand up if you're a midfielder, and you see 24 hands go up.
Yeah. Although if you ask the All Australian selectors, everyone's a forward.
Yeah, Marcus Bontempelli in a forward pocket and
Christian Petrarca is a forward.
Dustin Martin on a halfback flank, and
Wherever you can fit him in.
Yeah, so another thing I noticed too, like Zane Zakostelski did pretty well for himself. He seems to be starting to come into some form as well. He took, I reckon, about 7 or 8 marks.
Like he's kind of just starting his apprenticeship, isn't he?
Yeah, and I noticed he's been a bit more up and about on his socials. He's like putting more footy stuff up on his socials as well. So that shows he's enjoying his footy, enjoying himself. And he's making friends with a few of the boys up there as well. He's doing a bit of stuff socially with a couple of the boys. So that's handy. And missing a fair portion of the start of the season, and a little bit of preseason, put him behind the 8 ball a bit. So, it's good to see him, fellow boy of Eastern European background, flying the flag for us.
Yeah, look, there's no pressure on him. Obviously, at this stage, he's got all the time in the world to develop.
Yeah.
A guy who's, he's just starting his apprenticeship. The guy who's finishing his apprenticeship basically, and seems ready to go is Henry Smith. It sounds like his development's coming along swimmingly.
He's champing at the bit right now. And when he got interviewed at that post-match function after the Hawks game, he was like, at the moment I've got to try and bet out Joe Danaher or Eric Hipwood. But then you could see his eyes kind of started glowing. It was like he knows he knows what he has to do, and he knows he's got to keep playing good footy.
Oh, look, it's exciting to have someone who's ready to go. To either replace one of those guys or even Oscar, because look, if Oscar gets suspended or I'm not going to injured potentially, I don't want to jinx him or anything like that. I would seriously consider bringing in Smith over Fort.
I reckon they're taking Smith over at least as an emergency when we play the Eagles away.
Yeah, for sure. I would be doing that. I think he's showing way more than Fort is in the VFL, and I know Fort's played more AFL games and all that sort of stuff and a bit more experience, but I would be rolling the dice, and just because even if it's just a look into the future, because he's the long-term replacement of Fort and Oscar are roughly the same age, so in 4 years or so when Oscar starts to decline, it's Henry who's going to be the guy to step up, not the guy who's the similar age and will probably also be declining at the same time as Oscar.
Yeah, and he's also a long way ahead of Kalen Lane.
So much further ahead.
Yeah, and look, Zakostelski played a lot of Colts footy as a ruckman, but he's not big enough to be an AFL level ruck.
He's pretty big. He's nearly 2 meters, isn't he?
He's sort of mid 190s, I think. He's like maybe 196 or so, but you've got to be 200 plus now.
Or at least be able to jump extremely high.
The days of Stephen Martin running around at 197 are long gone, because I mean, even Big O's not one of the taller ruckmen in the comp. Jared Witz, Max Gorn, guys like that, Sean Darcy, they're all way bigger than him.
Yeah.
And even a lot of the guys coming through, but again, those go gadget arms.
True.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for the VFL, really. Pretty clinical win. The boys played really well. You could see the teamwork. Henry Smith, by far the best player on the ground, in my opinion. Dev Rob, up there as well. But I think, a ruckman getting 23 disposals and a bunch of hit-outs and a bunch of clearances trumps any midfielder getting 30 plus.
Oh, he's extremely talented. I was pretty bullish when we picked him up, and then obviously it took a few years to kind of show consistently at the VFL level, but he has just been smashing it this entire season.
And he's improved his ball usage as well. He used to be really, really bad at kicking the football, and he's improved that out of sight.
Yeah, and I mean, we're sitting 6th in the ladder in the VFL at the moment out of, 10,000 teams this season, or is it?
So were you able to find the ladder, were you? I couldn't get it up.
Yeah, we're sitting 6th, so 11 games played.
Yeah.
I think we're due for a bye soon because I can see a few teams have played 12 games.
Yeah, we've
Um,
only had 3 buys this year. Surely we get time to have 3 more.
Yeah, that's ridiculous in the VFL, isn't it? So we've won 3 and we've lost. Sorry, we've won 8 and we've lost 3.
Yeah.
Which the 2 teams above us are sitting in the exact same win-loss. And then Werribee is clear ahead of the rest with
Yeah.
9-2 and a very high percentage of 133. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, they were in the grand final last year, so
Mm.
so
And
yeah,
Carlton is right at the bottom with 1 win and 10 losses.
yeah. So I did bring that up on my little live thing I did last week, that I was rejoicing in the fact that they were 21st on the ladder.
Yeah. They and Collingwood's not that much further ahead of them. They're 2 wins, 9 losses.
Collingwood are in a situation where they've got a lot of supplementary players at the moment, because they've got so many guys out.
Well, it just shows that their list is so top heavy at the moment. Same with Carlton.
Yeah, which the media keep reminding us that Collingwood are putting out a VFL side in the AFL every week, allegedly.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Excuses. So
how many of their grand final teams playing? Like almost all of it.
Yeah, we so in the VFL next week we have another home game at Brighton Homes.
Yeah, the Lions are playing the Lions.
Yeah, we play Coburg, and yeah, I never took on the Coburg Lions as my VFL or VFA as it was team, like a lot of Fitzroy and Brisbane supporters did. Yeah, so
it kind of reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Bart's team, Flanders is coaching Bart's team, and it's like, who are we going to beat? Who are we? The Lions. Who are we going to beat? The Lions.
Well, it's like you've got Werribee Tigers and Richmond Tigers in the VFL as well.
Exactly.
And then you're going to have the Tassie Tigers or Tassie Devils, but they did have the Tassie Tigers briefly. I don't think they lasted very long. They had the Tassie Mariners as well. And
the VFL is such a mess at the moment. Like, you got like team like the Bull Ants, which has just been basically winning the wooden spoon for the VFL for the last couple of years.
Yeah, well,
a bunch of the NEFL teams were in there, but then it dropped out. Like NT Thunder just dropped out completely before they even as soon as it was announced that the NEFL was going to merge, they just disappeared.
Yeah, well, Carlton had the partnership with the Bull Ants and then pulled out. They were the Northern Blues for a while, and they just pulled out unexpectedly. I don't think even the Bull Ants officials knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, pretty poor form.
So yeah, the word now this week as well is that the Eagles and the Dockers have signed on to stay in the Waffle for another 2 to 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And the Crows have got no interest in leaving the SANFL at the moment, even though they're absolute junk every week in the SANFL.
What about Port? Are they interested in leaving, or are they willing to stay?
Haven't heard anything new on that since we spoke to Adam the other night. So yeah,
a couple of steps back in the progress towards a national reserves comp, don't they?
Well, Mark Redding's WA journalist did say late this week, so Thursday or Friday, that even though the Eagles and Peel have signed on, or the Freo have signed a deal with Peel, and the Eagles have signed on for another couple more years, he still thinks in 3 years' time there will definitely be a national reserves comp. That's what he's hearing from the WA Footy Commission. So we'll just keep watching that. I mean, makes no difference to us technically, but
not really. But I mean, it would be interesting. I mean, it would mean more curtain raises and things like that.
Yeah, and look, like us and the Swans, Giants, and the Suns, their guys are flying every second or third week anyway now. So having a South Australians and the WA teams in isn't going to change too much for them, because they're already getting into that habit of learning to fly. But it's more for those clubs.
Yeah.
So their guys are going to be more experienced when they get to the AFL level, because they'll start flying. But at the moment they're not, and that's probably a big advantage that the Northern States clubs have got.
It's funny. I remember when there was talk about the NEFL and the VFL merging. Us joining their competition, I should say, not full merge. People were like, the NEFL teams are all going to be crap because it's a even lower standard of football. Like, it's basically a third tier instead of a second tier. that's joining them and all that sort of stuff. And we've actually been pretty consistently good since we joined. And Southport, a standalone Queensland club, is consistently in the top 8 or, pushing finals in the VFL. So
yeah, well, that's it. But even like the standalone Victorian clubs, like, Werribee, we already mentioned, Williamstown, they've got no AFL alignments and they go pretty well most years as well. So
yeah,
it just goes to show that like those standalone clubs with their bigger bodies and more experienced guys and with us with so many supplementary guys that are sort of mature age as well.
Yeah.
That makes a massive difference playing against 18-year-olds every week. So yeah.
But it always makes me happy to see Southport doing super well against Victorian clubs.
Seems as they got knocked back from joining the league.
Yeah. No, don't even get me started.
So that Andrew
They
Demetrio,
should be the sun shouldn't exist. It should be the Southport Sharks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But, maybe Eddie Maguire had a bit to do with that. Didn't want another black and white team in the comp.
God, Maguire. Anyway, we should get into ticks and crosses, right?
Yeah, we should. You're on tick, so you can go first.
Sure. So, okay. So, consistently good form for a couple of weeks in a row now. So that's a big tick.
Yep.
Obviously, very rocky before the bye. But we've been pretty good since the bye. Well, we've been undefeated since the bye, I should say.
That is correct.
So that one's really good to see. Hopefully we can keep that up a bit longer. Finally finding a 3 key tall forward combination that works.
Yeah.
But the third obviously being Logan Morris in that third. Because we tried a few different guys in that position and it never really seemed to work. We tried Fort and that didn't really work, and we tried Gunston and that didn't really work. And
it sort of worked with
McStay,
but in a different way with McStay. He wasn't like a regular goal kicker like Logan Morris has become. He was more of a selfless sort of setup guy for his teammates.
Yeah, and look, we were pretty excited about Morris as soon as he, had his first VFL game, and he was just constantly doing really well. And then he got his shot, and he had a couple of lucky goals in his first game, and then that really built his confidence. And now he's, I can't see him going anywhere. I can't see him getting dropped back to the twos anytime soon.
No,
who would replace him?
He's done a Darcy Wilmot, hasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. And I mean, Kai Lohmann's done something similar. He kept, famously at the beginning of the season, I was frustrated about him being the sub every week and then being brought on for 5 minutes, and then they go, oh, well, you haven't really shown much, and then drop him and make him sub again, and drop him and then make him sub again. But when he got a consistent run of games like I was asking for, it's, hey, this guy's pretty good and we should keep him in the main team because he's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And then that kind of ties into my next tick, which is Kai Lohmann's aerial work. Like, he's probably the most exciting for marks on the team since Link McCarthy got injured.
Yeah.
And him and Cal are constantly jumping forward every week.
Yeah, and they both have their critics. There's always going to be those guys that are like, oh, they just want to take mark of the year. And I think even both of us have said that about Lohmann this year. So,
oh, look, I mean, yes, but at the same time, you need someone to try things like that to make things work sometimes.
Yeah, and
sometimes like that can break open a boring play and get the ball moving.
And if they don't mark it and it comes to ground, we do have like, Bailey and Chuck and whatever. Even like Hipwood and Joey have shown a bit of bend over and pick up the ball on the run movements lately too.
Yeah, well, I mean, like our structure got really thrown out the window when McCarthy got injured, because he was that guy for a long time where he would be that short guy that could take a massive leap and take a good grab, or if he couldn't get it, then he would bring it down for the small guys like Charlie and stuff like that. So it's good that Lohmann's kind of stepped into that role, even though he kind of goes up the field a bit more than Link used to.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And another tick is not getting intimidated. Obviously, Port came out the gates with their 2004 heritage jumper, and they tried to be all smart and cocky about like, oh yeah, like we smashed you guys in the 2004 grand final. This is going to be a repeat of that, and they were trying to bully the players and all that sort of stuff, and it just did not work for them at all.
Yeah,
I think the boys stood up and just didn't care.
They're the 2004 grand final jumper, but played like they're in the 2007 grand final.
Yeah. I think I texted you at some point in the game, and
Yeah.
I was like, do you think the 2004 players have gone home yet, or?
Yeah, and it's funny because around about that time, our score was 119.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
So that was exciting. And then my last tick is the commentators being able to differentiate between Jason Horne-Francis and Miles Bergman. I
yeah,
can't.
that's a hell of a job, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't tell the difference between them. So, but they seem to get it done really well. So, big props to them for that because I
Yeah,
was convinced they were the same person for a long time.
both my kids were yelling abuse at Miles Bergman a couple of times about ice baths, and I'm like, that's not Hon Francis, that's Bergman. Oh, they could be twins.
Oh, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a hell of an effort to get that one right. Is that all your ticks? Or have you got more?
that's all my ticks, but I just had like an interesting, like a side comment as well. So it's not really a tick or a cross. It's just kind of a curious thing. I've for a couple of, I don't know if it's in a row, but there's several games that I've noticed that Joe has 100% time on ground.
Yeah,
Like he doesn't go to the bench. I
no,
don't know what that is. Like he's just super
no.
fit, or is he just?
Harris is a bit like that too.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Like, I mean, obviously they're fit fellas, but like, I thought it was like a structural thing, like they have to come off for a certain amount of time or like rotations but he just doesn't come off. He just stays on the entire time.
Yeah, Todd Goldstein is a guy that you hear about a bit in the media that he doesn't go off very often either. And I know, like I said, Harris Andrews is another one. And yeah, it's interesting. Like you'd think in today's day and age, maybe Harris needs to kick a goal because
Yeah, they would send him straight off after that, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
But yeah, like with Joe, it's interesting because he does get up the ground a bit and he does, give.
Yeah, he does all the ruck stuff as well.
Yeah, and all that. So, yeah, so maybe.
But he never looks tired either. Like he never
Nah.
looks like he's puffed or.
Never looks like he's raising a sweat, even when he's done something big.
Yeah, he's incredible.
I reckon his heart rate's probably at my level, like 53 beats per minute.
So yeah, that's so I've got my player of the week, but I'll save that till after you do your crosses. But
yeah,
that's all from me right now.
All right. Well, so my first cross is the lack of the pre-game coverage by Fox. So the coverage didn't start till 15 minutes before the game. Now it's the only game on anywhere in Australia in the AFL at the time.
Yeah.
Like we don't need to watch a gambling sports bet inspired show with Kane Corns because he's already on TV enough. Nathan Brown and Isaac Smith. I mean, Isaac Smith's all right. I don't mind him, but they have this show that's on pre-game and then it gets repeated like 50 times over the course of the weekend where they just basically go on and talk about who they're betting on for the weekend, which I thought it was illegal for the media pass people to people with media passes, should I say, to bet on the AFL. But hey, what do I know?
Yeah, no, it's a weird one, and like you said, like it's not like they had to compete with any other games or anything. So
like give us a bit of build up, and it's not just our game. It's not just like a Victorian bias thing either, because they've done it to when there's been games of two Victorian clubs or whatever as well in that same sort of time slot. Like, give us something. Like Channel 7 have give you like 45 minutes to an hour. Not that I really watch it very often, but everyone talks about it.
And look, the same could be said for after the game as well.
Yeah.
Like they just cut it off straight away. Well, like I know they had another game to go to, but at the same time, like they've got
two channels.
They've got overflow channels. They've got 504 is the main channel which we were on. They could have gone and put the other game on 503 because they cut off the song. They cut off, sharing Harris Andrews off for his 200th game.
Yeah.
They just completely cut all of it off and just went to the Swans warming up. And it's like, well, you could have delayed that for, a couple of minutes longer.
Yeah. And they do this to, whoever has those early time slots, they do it to them every week. And it hasn't been us that often this year, but because we played obviously a lot of Friday and Sunday games. But yeah, getting back to a Saturday game, I noticed that it was pretty noticeable. So My next cross is Shadow Brain as the sub. We've brought that up already. We don't need to keep going on
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Look,
But even just our usage of the sub.
yeah, like if it wasn't him, it was going to be someone else. But I mean, the strategy around the way we use our sub is just poor in general.
Yeah, it was always going to be him. But so this one, and I know I pumped up Rayner earlier, but very early on in the game when Logan Morris won a free kick and Rayner just ran off taking the advantage and sprayed a shot at goal.
Pardon me. Sorry.
Oh, you must be allergic to blokes who take the
I'm allergic to
advantage.
selfishness, Yeah, no, I completely agree. I thought that was he completely blew off Morris on that one.
Yeah, and like it's funny because the club on their socials put Rayner up as one of their potential game changers, and they were like, is Cam your game changer this week? And there was all these middle-aged women just absolutely reaming the club over it. And like, oh no, he's selfish. He took a shot at goal and sprayed it. And it's true because everybody said the same thing. It's like, what were you thinking?
Oh, it was ridiculous.
Had he kicked the goal, we would have been like, oh, that's our boy. So
yes. Yeah, well, I still do get frustrated even if those things do come off. I think it depends on the situation. I mean, if we weren't desperate for a goal. If we were like, within a goal and it was last couple of minutes of the quarter or the end of the game or something like that, you need someone to take those shots and just get it done. But we were comfortably ahead and he just didn't need to blow him off like that.
Yeah, no, that was like I'm sure they're they've discussed it and moved on.
Yeah, maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, so my next one is I shouldn't really say what I wrote, but I just will. The circle jerk over Jeremy Finlayson by the commentators. Like the fact that, a dozen plus times they called other players Finlayson. And they just kept like over-inflating him constantly throughout the game.
Yeah, they kept talking like he was gonna, come in and be a game changer for them. I thought he was pretty average, to be honest.
Yeah, he had a couple of moments, but yeah, generally not. And my last one, and I'm gonna play some audio. Hopefully it comes through. And I think everyone will figure this out pretty quickly. It's a bloke in the media who is not sold on us, apparently. Oh, hang on. Helps if oh, God, I am so bad at this.
You're good at this, mate.
Yeah, I'm a ripper. Here we go.
Some are pushing for Brisbane if they get in as a wild card. Not myself, but I understand the logic.
So David King, after he pumped up the Bulldogs as being, he's like, yeah, Sydney have got this to lose. But then he's like, the Bulldogs and this and that, rah, 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 carrying on about how they're the second premiership favourites in his eyes and all this. Totally brushed off Collingwood and Carlton, who are much higher up the ladder, and Carlton the second place and, looking pretty good.
Wait, he thinks the Bulldogs are second in line for premiership?
And then, then he's totally gone, I don't think Brisbane are any sort of chance. Yeah, after we absolutely flogged the Bulldogs a couple of games ago. I mean,
look, I can understand him not, jumping on the hype train for Brisbane. I can see that. But putting Bulldogs up that high, I can't see that. I don't understand the logic there.
It's because Champion Data's stats keep telling him that they've got the best midfielder in the history of the world. And he doesn't know how to analyze a game without using these imaginary stats that, like the ones that told us that Mason Cox was an elite footballer. I think at one stage they had Tom Cutler in the elite category for something when he played for us.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. Maybe it's to do with what's his name, Hoyne, who has got a regular slot on SEN with King.
Yeah, but he's like we said before, he's up and about with Brisbane. So
generally,
yeah. So that was on the Friday Fireball, I think they called on the SEN breakfast on.
That's
Friday.
his one with Kane, isn't it?
Yeah, and yeah, like I had to get the audio from Spotify, but I watched their YouTube video of it, and Corns' face when Kingy said he wasn't sold on Brisbane was priceless. Even Corns is up and about with us, so that says a lot. So that was my last one, and I guess we're getting into our players of the week now.
Yeah, do you want to go first, considering you were just doing your bit?
Not really,
I went
but-
first last week.
Yeah, not really, but I will. So I've got 6 players on my list. So I'm going to mention them
Oh,
all,
jeez.
and I'm going to make you guess which one is my player.
Okay.
And I've scrambled my order intentionally. So I thought Dunkley probably one of his best games of the year.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Hipwood was great again.
5 goals.
5 goals, but he did a lot of other stuff, marks and field kicking, and that was really good. Big O, probably his best. Is definitely his best 4 quarters of football for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that first quarter against Geelong before he got concussed was great.
Yep.
As I said before, I thought it was Fletcher's best game of the year. Lockie Neal was scintillating again. His form is amazing, and Motti. I mean, the stats say it all for Motti.
Yeah.
So, which one of those do you reckon I'm giving it to?
Oscar.
Yep. Yeah. I under
You tried to play that. Yeah, you played down the excitement around we talking about him, but I was like, it has to be Oscar. I know it's Oscar.
And I even like did the old phone a friend and asked my daughter who should I pick, and her top 3 were Dunkley, Hipwood, and Oscar.
Yeah,
and then she's gone, oh, but Lockie Neal was pretty good. I'm like, you're not making this easy for me.
Yeah. Look, I probably wouldn't have had Dunkley as high, but I can see why you had the others as high.
Yeah.
I thought Dunkley was really good, but he did a couple of really silly things in the game that cost some opportunities.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't have had him as high, but that was the best game I've ever seen from Oscar. Like, not even just season, but career.
In my order, I had Dunkley 4th in line.
Yeah. There you go.
But him and Wilmot could have swapped places quite comfortably as well.
Oh, yeah, but Wilmot's kind of suffering from that. We've talked about it a few times now, where it's like he could have a really good game, which he just has every week, and we just kind of expect that, so we don't notice it when his normal is just really good.
Yeah.
So he kind of suffers from that, and that's probably why he's not going to, get too many Brownlow votes in his career, but he might, be top 10 for best and fairest for the rest of his career,
Yeah.
But I think Neil had a fantastic game. Hipwood kicked 5 goals. How could he not be up that high? But Oscar kicking 3 and getting 10 clearances and 30 hitouts. So that was the best game I've ever seen him play.
Yeah, and that sort of backs up what we said about Henry Smith. When ruckmen are getting those sort of numbers, you've got to put them ahead of the mids and the forwards.
Oh yeah, that was like Max Gawn level game from Oscar.
Yeah, and unless you've got a forward who kicks 12, obviously, then they've got to get it. But yeah. So big O for me, and I had Neil 2nd, Hipwood 3rd. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So Lockie Neal unlucky again.
Yeah, look, I'm sure he probably got the 3 Brownlow votes.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And I'd say Butters probably got the 2, and then Oscar probably got the 1. But yeah, because that's just how they do their voting. I mean, but yeah, look, I think clearly Oscar's best game for his career. I can't think of a single one that he's played better than that.
No,
it was career high 3. He's never kicked 3 before. He's only ever kicked 2.
He's had games where he's kicked 2 goals but has been beaten in a ruck, or games where he's won the ruck and hasn't kicked any goals.
Yeah.
This game he did everything, and the clearances as well. That's it
was a complete game from
They
him.
weren't just little hack clearances like he gets fairly often as well. They were good, clear clearances.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
he had one of his goals was from a direct clearance.
Yeah.
Literally in the goal square, he snatched it and kicked it.
Yeah, that actually was on the footage of one of the Channel 9 footy show clips that I watched. I don't know why I keep saying Channel 9 footy show, because everyone knows the footy show's in Channel 9. But so I think they just call it the footy show now. It's not
I think so, yeah. You sound like an advertisement there.
Yeah, because
the Channel 9 at 7 p.m. footy show.
The Channel
Presented
9,
sponsored by.
the Channel 9, 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning footy show, hosted by Tony Jones and sponsored by Valentine's Chocolates. No, they're not even around anymore, but they used to sponsor World of Sport, according to our mate Neil. So, so you've gone with Big O as well?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It was an easy one for me. I mean, I can see how you had the other guys so high because they were, they would be up in my top three as well. But the distance between second and first for my player of the game was enormous. Just because, like he would kick 5 goals, but for a ruckman to kick 3 is I can't remember the last time that happened, apart from Max Gorn, being a superstar.
And there was a lot of chatter on a lot of the various sort of footy pages on Facebook, at least, with neutral supporters and a few media people as well, sort of saying like this guy goes under the radar all the time.
Oh yeah.
And and I think actually might have been the AFL Facebook page. It was one of them anyway. Had a is this bloke underrated post, and just heaps of people whose names I haven't seen before. So I'm going to say they're not Lions fans. Like, oh yeah, like this guy, like he holds his own every week.
Yeah.
But yesterday, it was out of this world.
Yeah, look, three goals, 18 touches, 8 clearances, and 31 hit-outs is an astonishing game.
Yeah, and didn't he love it as well? Like he celebrated one of his goals before it even went through the sticks.
Jeez, that's confidence.
Yeah, because he's kicking for goals sometimes is a bit hit and miss, and but his field kicking is generally pretty good. So I feel like we said a lot about guys at our club, don't we?
Yeah, that's true.
That's like old mate Oscar Allen. I noticed at one point late in the Eagles game, they said he'd kicked 1 goal 4, and I said to my son, he'll fit right into Brisbane then, won't he?
Yeah, I was going to say future Brisbane Lion.
Yeah, because they also said in the same sentence, but his field kicking's been really good. I was like, that sounds familiar.
It's almost like they've read the script.
Yeah, that's right. So I want to do a big shout out to the Fitzroy fraternity for chucking some support my way with the club we hold so dear stuff.
That's good.
Yeah, getting some really good numbers on the YouTube side of things, actually, with the thing I put out about the 1916 VFL season. Fitzroy came last and first in the same year.
Yeah, pretty incredible story.
If
anyone listening hasn't heard that and has an interest in the history of the football club, definitely check that out because it's a pretty rare achievement. Yeah,
and what really pleased my heart was I was as I was researching it, I discovered for the first time that the official wooden spooner was Richmond, and it's always good when they win one.
Yeah.
Even though there was only 4 teams in the comp. But yeah, like a lot of support for that, a lot of really good comments and stuff like that as well. Now, I made a promise that I've just remembered to people on Facebook. So this is going to extend the show by a little bit.
Okay.
But I promised I would. So I put a post up from our social page in one of the Facebook groups, and I got in trouble for mentioning names of groups because it sounds like I'm favouring some groups over others. So in one of the Lions supporters groups, probably get the giveaway there, which one I'm talking about, a photo of the Big O and Jason Horne-Francis, or it could be Miles Bergman, squaring off with each other, and it looks like they're having a bit to say. And I said to people, if you caption this, the best ones will get read out on the show tonight. So I only just remembered at the last minute. So sorry for those people who, when you are listening to this, you want to go have a lie down with a Bex and a cup of tea or whatever. So I'm going to run through this really quickly. I won't read out every comment. So if I miss your caption, it was good. It's just there wasn't enough time left in the show because Elle was going to punch me if I keep it going. So Grantley Davis said our training run finishes at 4:30. Thanks for being the witches' hats. Trent Cooley he says that Oscar's saying to Horne-Francis, I've got the ice bath ready for you. There's a lot of comments about ice baths. Andrew Saxelby says, thanks for putting my career on ice. Stephen Thomas looks like you tore us apart. There's another ice bath one, another one about being back at North. Maybe Glenn Simpson, maybe the ice bars won't so bad after all. Nick Davis, and some people will get this one. And Oscar's saying to Horn Francis, I believe that jacket belongs to Mr. Gilmore.
That's my favourite.
Oh, how good is Happy Gilmore?
So good.
We're going to have to talk about it on another episode, though. It's such a good movie. Especially, there's one. No, I can't. It's got too much swearing in it for me to repeat it. About certain things that people have for breakfast.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
There's a reference to there's a picture of Roy Orbison, who, as a singer back in the 60s, was known as the Big O, saying, hey, JHF. Gotta love a JHF reference. I'm glad you're a fan of one of my biggest hits, and it's a song called Crying. Victor Zara saying that Horn Francis is asking how he can join the Brisbane Lions. Nathan O'Brien, the big sticks, Jason, you're supposed to kick it between the big sticks. I've already shown you 3 times today.
Yeah, well, that was ironic, particularly because obviously he kicked 3, but then not Bergman kicked 3 behinds.
The not Bergman.
Not Bergman.
Emily Mears, she says, Horn Francis looks over to the big screen and says, you told me that my butt wasn't that big. And then he whimpers. Matt Burns, oh, come on, Oscar, let us have a kick as well. Matthew Gall, I'd like an immediate trade back to North Melbourne. And he also said, I didn't expect the Lions to be giving me the ice bath. Ken Price, please stop. I can't count over 100. That's not very nice. Deb Murray, our number 1 draft pick is better than yours. I assume she's talking about Cam Rayner.
Yeah, I thought so, yeah.
Rick Smith, never say never, tear us apart.
Mm-hmm.
Richie Poole, anyone got Clarko's phone number? Rob Peterson, do you still want the big O bobblehead for your mantelpiece? Peter Tennyson, do you want a pie with peas? That's a South Australian thing. Pie floater with mushy peas.
Sounds very British.
Heather Farrer's gone with the old, what are you looking at? And Shane Potter, this is a good one. Oscar's looking at Horn Francis and saying, who are you, young fella? Stacey, our good friend, has said, I'm telling my mum. And then she said, that's as nice as I can go. I'm sure she wanted to chuck in an expletive there.
Good old Stacey.
Yeah, and Martin Spinks, that's the last one I'll read out. There's a few more. Horn Francis saying to Oscar, hey, I thought you guys are supposed to be crap. Yeah, we're not. So
not anymore.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I reckon that'll do us.
I think that's a good podcast, mate. What's that, 2 hours? 2
Yeah.
and a half hours?
So as I keep saying on that, like I said, I don't know the exact individual numbers per episode, but I know how big the traffic is in the amount of sort of downloads we get over a period of time, or the amount of listens. And the most traffic we've had have been for our 2 episodes that have gone over 2 hours.
That's interesting. I thought it would have been these shorter episodes, like the hour and a half, 90-minute ones.
No, and I must admit, we got a little bit of feedback a couple of weeks ago, 4 or 5 people saying we waffle on too much.
Yeah.
But since then, we've had 2 episodes over 2 hours that have, the traffic has been really big and high. And Adam from Down the Guts as well just wanted to let us know. He did message me yesterday to say that he listened back to the episode where we had him on, and he was really, really, really happy with how everything went, and he felt like he was really comfortable with us as well. So
I had a great time chatting to him.
For our listeners, they have Josh Sin of the Port Adelaide Power on their show today. Their episode's out now. But
That's a big gap for them.
Yeah, really good. Like, really happy for those guys to get a current player on board.
Yeah.
For like they've worked so hard and they deserve it. We are going to do some more collaborations. We're going to go on their show.
Yep.
At some point, and we're going to do some trade and draft stuff, and we may be doing a redraft from 1 year. Adam's really keen on us doing that, and I'm more of a trade guy, but Al is a big draft guy. So definitely we'll be doing more stuff with those guys, and hopefully we'll get Joe, their other co-host, on before we play Adelaide. So
that'd be a good one.
Yeah, so everybody give them a listen. Like they're like one of my first things I listen to at work during the week, every week now, and get behind independent podcasters who don't have gambling companies or FM radio stations or television networks or pay TV networks behind them. Get behind the independents and give them your support.
Yep.
The guys at the Useless AFL Stats podcast are really good as well if you're really into your stats.
Yeah.
They tend to have long podcasts like us, but they don't talk about one club. They talk about everyone. They're really good. So, that'll be a wrap for us as far as I'm concerned. How about you?
Beauty. Yeah, no, I haven't really got much more to say about this one. Obviously, we'll meet up later in the week once we get the teams for our Friday night game, probably a Wednesday night pod.
Will we get the teams Wednesday?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
We'll see how we.
Wednesday or Thursday we'll record once we got the full team.
Yeah, we'll see how we go. But with the quick turnaround between the pod and the game, it'll just be the two of us this week.
Yep,
and
probably be a pretty quick one, I would imagine. So
I think there's only going to be one change. Ashcroft in for someone.
Well, yeah, that'll be interesting. But we'll know more on Tuesday once we got the injury list as well.
So
that's how it goes.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for tonight, and you better go get some rest. You've had a big day.
Yeah, big day, and I've got work early tomorrow morning. So
yes,
that'll be a good one.
Same. I'm on at 5 o'clock in the morning. So that's good. I prefer it. Sometimes they tell me to come in at 6:30, and I'm like, are you guys kidding? I am so OCD with my morning routine, and any changes to the time that I have to get up or leave to go to work really mess with my OCD. So I prefer to just have that early start every day. Plus, it means I can finish earlier.
Beauty. Well, have a good week at work, and I'll chat to you again when we do our preview of the Melbourne game.
Yep, you too. All right.
Let's
go. See you, mate. Bye.
This episode was produced by Steel Hat Productions. Please follow us and enable notifications to get our latest episodes anywhere podcasts are available. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review.
Hey Freya, guess what?
What, Ash?
We've got a Patreon now.
What's a Patreon?
I'm glad you asked. Patreon is a website we have started using to promote our extra content, such as those really long tangents that our listeners love, but are not quite on topic for a particular episode. So we need somewhere else to put them so people can still listen. We might also have some fun competitions, giveaways, and other fun interactions for our listeners to join in with.
Sounds great. How do the listeners get on board?
Go into patreon.com and click on the join link. All you need to do for a fan account is add your name and email address and then search for We Are the Pride Brisbane Lions podcast and give us a follow. We aren't asking for your money. It's free.
Sounds great, champ. I'm heading to patreon.com right now.
Damn, Freya. I can't believe you champed me.